Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Scott. I'm the proprietor of the Future Conflict channel. Today, by the way, guys, CFC episode 450. So, big number there. That's awesome. That means 500 is just right around the. I remember when we flipped the over to 400. So I know 500 is just right around the corner. I can't believe we've done 450 of these shows. Actually, more if you count the previous show we did before this. Today we're talking the Syrian Hellhole. So, we knew Syria was going to kind of pop up, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't figure that the Syrian government would fold like a cheap suit like they did. So we'll be talking about that today. A lot of really bad stuff around that, honestly. The reason why I call it a hellhole is basically you got two sides and neither of them have anything. It's like, I don't know. There's nobody to root for. It's just bad people fighting bad people.
There's way more than two sides of that, too.
Well, I know because then you got the SDF is in there and Israel's biting around the edges, and then you've got, of course, Russia and see, it's a multifaceted. I was thinking specifically the Aleppo fight.
What is it that they call that?
Hold on a second. Let me go through the topics first, and then we'll open it up. And then the second topic today is the Swamp Strikes Back. A bevy of things movement over the weekend relating to domestic politics. So we will be talking about that. And the Swamp Strikes Back is, of course, referring to both the pardon and swampy picks that Trump has made. So we'll be getting into that. But before we do that, Joe, how you doing today, brother?
I am well and good. Spent a good weekend here at the Camp Ponderosa.
Yeah.
Most importantly, I did get out a schedule for the first half of the year. And Matt and I are discussing some other classes for the second half of the year. So got a lot of good things going on. And over the weekend, I had some discussions. Shield Field Days will be back. I just don't have a date until later today. So a lot of good, fun stuff going down.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
I can't wait to see what comes up next. I know that with a little more, with more lead time, we can do more, right? And we did a whole lot with changing the date literally a month prior to the event. So I know it'll be cool either which way. Watcher, how you doing today? I'm sorry, I cut you off earlier.
Oh, you're good. I just before I lose that train of thought, I'm gonna say. So, Scott, you're saying that in Syria, it's bad people killing bad people. I think that they have a name for that in law enforcement. I'm pretty sure they call it a self-cleaning oven.
Well, that's true.
Well, it is something, isn't it? And that's it. Kind of goes back to the advice from Trump, right? It's like when ISIS and fighting, let them fight. Don't get involved. Let them.
Yup.
So yeah.
But I'm doing
Anyway,
pretty good. It's cold. It's cold. It's 10 degrees colder than the last time I said it was cold. So, whoo dog. But it's good. Cows are fat and happy, and that's all you can ask for.
Well, when are you getting your ass out of there?
Middle of this month. So I'll be heading back home about around the 15th.
Hey guys, I want to prep the battlefield right now. Both I want to prep you guys, and I also want to prep the audience. I will be thin on the ground starting next week, going into the week after that. I'm not saying I can't be here. I just don't know what my availability will be because I have a business trip that I'll be doing, and we'll have to figure that one out. So more to follow on that. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot as far as what I'll be able to do. So,
Okay.
So yes, that's something to keep in mind on the back burner. All right, guys. Anything you got? Anything good in the world you want to talk about before we get into all this future conflict?
Well, I'll always talk about the Northwest Montana Veterans Food Pantry. That's some good in the world.
Yeah, that's real good.
They're doing a lot of hard work and getting people fed and keeping people warm this time of year. We've handed out tons of sleeping bags and tons of cold weather gear, and fortunately, the Montana game wardens are keeping us fully stocked with elk that we can process and hand out to families who need some food, specifically veterans families. So good stuff.
That's awesome, man. And you guys know the website there. If you want to check that out, find out more about it, and probably everything we do going forward in the vicinity of Montana will have some connection to that to help to help those guys out. So that's one of the things I like about doing the events out of Montana is that we're able to do those long-term connections with both businesses in the area, but also with charitable efforts. So that's very cool.
Hey, on that note, if you are anywhere near Montana or within driving distance, this weekend I'll be at the Kalispell Gun Show, where I will be selling books and talking about our schedule and talking about the camp and some of the other things we have going on there. So stop on by the county fairgrounds. Flathead County
That'd be
Fairgrounds.
awesome. Well, it's I don't know that they realize that they have. I don't know realize that if they know that they've got such an august personage as yourself showing up. It's could be for a lot of fun.
You know what's funny is Mrs. Tactical Wisdom always jokes about the world famous Joe Dolio, and I always laugh it off. Like, no, not really. But the last time we were at the gun show, someone did stop me and recognize me, and that made her laugh. And I was like, I just told her this never happens, dude.
Well, that's one of those kind of things that there's the saying that when your head gets too big, God has a way of popping the balloon for you, but it goes the other way too, right? Just when you think that you're insignificant or you don't matter or something like that, God has a way of having one of his messengers come out and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, aren't you Joe Dolio, or aren't you Scott McCullough?" Or, well, nobody comes up to Watcher because nobody knows what he looks like. Well, if you see a Sasquatch walking around at a gun show, it might be Watcher. So,
aren't you Bigfoot? And he's like, "No, my name is Daryl." It's a commercial reference.
I don't usually do this, but guys, it's important to celebrate your W's. And Squishy Hunter, hell yeah, get some. Fuck yes.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's very cool. All right, let's jump right into our first odds and ends. We kind of, Joe, I'm sure you were watching this over the weekend. I love the bounty posters that I've seen of Victoria Newland's face on them. If you see this lady, then you are definitely in the Second Maidan, uprising. Because 4 days later, the Georgia protests are still going on. This is an article from Deutsche Welle. Georgia, mass protests grow entering the fourth night. Tens of thousands of Georgians continue to pressure the government over EU accession as the opposition figures cry fraud. Now, this pro EU movement it was a thing in the Ukraine. It's a thing in Georgia. It's been a thing in Georgia for a while, but it is not like 55% of the people, right? It's probably at best, 30%. The middle 30 just don't care, and the other 30 are probably like, hey, I'd actually prefer Russia, or I'd prefer something, a different arrangement, right? And I know there's 10% left, but
let's be honest, the vast majority of people's thoughts on this matter are, bro, I have work on Monday.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what that big block of 40 in the middle are probably just kind of like, whatever,
But let me remind you that that's exactly how the Maidan went. There's a small minority of people who went downtown and overthrew the government over the course of a weekend. So crazy.
Imagine being this enthusiastic over trying to join the EU while multiple other nations are like, bro, get us the hell out of this deal. This is the worst possible deal.
Well, you got to remember, whether it's Romania, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Georgia, these countries are all on the poor end of the scale for Europe, right? And so what they see is the opportunity to, like if you join the EU, then you can go without a visa, without a work permit or anything like that, and go work, say, in France or in Germany or
right. But have they also thought about the fact that that also means that everyone from all of those places can come work visa free in your country?
But it's like Romania, man. No, I don't know if you've been in the countryside of Romania. I have. There aren't a whole lot of jobs for Frenchmen in those places,
Mm.
And so, I mean, the point is that the poor country always benefits off the richer country, and
It's true. How's the
Germany's
Romanian
basically
dollar?
not very good,
Not great.
but
Gotcha.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it was like 75 cents for a taxi ride to the from the airport hotel. So, I mean, what is
Oh,
that?
yeah. Well, yeah. Oof.
Look at Stormy. You gotta give her credit. I have to run. I'm sneaking y'all in while I'm at work, so we appreciate you. Anybody else who's kind of got us in their earbud or whatever at work, we appreciate it. We, all you guys who make time for us in the morning. You guys want to. I don't think we need to make a decision anytime soon. But when I finally move back to the U.S., which allegedly is happening next year. We got to figure out like our new time. So if you guys in the chat, if you're in the X DM fan group, give us your ideas of what time you'd want to see us if we were all back in the States again.
Something more godly than this 6:30 in the morning.
I'm with you, brother. I mean, let's see. It'll probably be in the evening, but I just don't know when. So we'll have to figure that one out. All right. Hell, who knows? It may be a late show. Let me jump back into the story here.
Look like this? Is there some like international dress like a dipshit thing when they do these color revolutions? Like, is that one of the instructions that they hand out?
Well, I like the guy in the picture above that's in the old 70s era, Warsaw Pact gas mask. I mean, that thing that just screams like cultist, like chaos cultist when I see that. Either that or
I just need to know
of Krieg.
where I need to know where I buy a Roman candle this size, because bruh, that looks like fun.
Yeah. Tens of thousands of Georgians took to the street again on Sunday as mass nationwide protests entered the fourth night. National media outlets reporting demonstrations in at least 8 cities and protesters setting up roadblocks, as well as shutting down access to the Black Sea port of Poti. Georgia has been rocked by unrest since the pro-Russia Georgian Dream Party claimed victory in a contested October 26th vote. The country's opposition is boycotting parliament over the situation, and the past several days have seen a massive uptick in civil unrest. Now, of course, there's no way a pro-Russia party could actually win legitimately. I'm sure they said, "Oh, well, it's election rigging and all that kind of stuff." Heaven forbid it would actually be the will of the people to put a pro-Russia party in power.
Well, this is just a standard playbook, right? We always claim fraud, then we claim we have to do a recount, and if that doesn't happen, we do this to try and pressure people. At this point, if you live in Europe, you should view that flag as the Nazi flag. It's literally Germany and France taking over the entire continent and getting a say in what your country does. The last time we did that, it didn't go well.
Yeah,
it's literally led by the former German defense minister.
Yeah, the thing that's crazy, Joe, to me is how quickly these countries want to give up their sovereignty.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me,
Well,
but
hell,
then again,
Scott.
what do I know?
All the cool kids are jumping off the bridge. Why aren't you?
I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't want to
exactly.
break my neck. All right, let me get back to the story here. Let's see. The decision was announced by the Prime Minister Iraliki. I don't know how to say these Georgian names are really hard. I mean, it makes Ukrainian look like child's play. I knew this one. Incumbent President Zurabishvili also called the Georgian Dream government illegitimate and has joined protesters calling for a new vote. That's the outgoing president, the incumbent president. Zurabishvili has vowed to remain in office, decrying the vote in Thursday's EU decision as unconstitutional and against the interest of Georgian people. So, I mean, Joe, these people are literally saying, no, we lost. And so because we lost, it's unconstitutional. You can't have a pro-Russia stance.
Gosh, does that sound familiar at all?
I know. It's almost like there's a playbook.
It's almost like this guy back in 2014 or so, 2008 to 2015, wrote a playbook on this. By the way, Alpha Charlie Concepts is in the chat, so I have to point out I'm wearing an Alpha Charlie Concepts shirt. Don't forget nothing. UW gear. It's from the Ranger Creed. The original Rogers Rangers orders. Don't forget nothing. But it is an Alpha Charlie Concept shirt, so find yours at UW Gear. I don't know if he's selling things right now or not, but you can at least go and marvel at it, even if you can't order it.
All right. So on Sunday, Zurabishvili told a meeting of opposition leaders, we have only one demand, which is based on the Constitution. The only way to achieve stability is through new elections. There is no other way. So, but the crazy thing is, Joe, is that you'd think they at least refer to what in the Constitution was broken, right? But I don't hear any of that. It's like, oh, this is unconstitutional. We need new elections. Okay, well, what? That's like, that's like the old gnome equation for making money from South Park. Steal underwear. Step 2, step 3, profit. It's like, well, what's step 2? What causes this, profit thing to happen? And so, I'm just not getting it here. Protesters at the door on Sunday. Protesters in the capital of Tbilisi gathered outside Parliament, waving EU flags and banging on the institution's front door. So, of a foreign power, waving the flags of a foreign power. It's almost like they're asking to be annexed, by this super, amalgamation. And the odd thing to me, whenever I see the EU, I always think of Germany's plan for taking over the entire continent of Europe. The Nazis' plan. It was Europa, right? It was this whole idea of a German united. Shockingly enough, the EU is a German-led. Wow, it's almost like they succeeded. Well,
it's like they saw the Japanese example, right? The Japanese tried to take over militarily, didn't do well. And by the 80s, they were literally running the world business-wise. Now, that has since collapsed, but the Germans were like, hey, I think they're onto something. Let's try a cooperative way. And by cooperative, I mean semi-cooperative. There is nothing at all democratic about the EU. Those members of European Parliament aren't direct elected, right? They're elected by the parliaments of the individual countries. It's absolutely crazy.
All right.
Yeah, Joshua Clark, you're right. What was Ursula's prior job? German defense minister. Absolutely.
On Sunday, let's see, the European Union has called for an investigation in the October ballot over serious electoral irregularities and withheld recognition of the incoming Georgian Dream government as the legitimate winner. The European Parliament has officially rejected the result. Okay, so what power do they have to reject the result?
Yeah, I mean,
that a sovereign
okay,
country-
this is like the city of Gary, Indiana, issuing a resolution saying Israel must stop its war against Hamas. Okay, neat.
So let me just put all my cards on the table. Do I think Russia would cheat to get a pro-Russia, party into power in Georgia? Yeah, I think they would. Right. So I'm not saying that this is not without some sort of plausibility. The problem is I absolutely see nothing that makes it look like there's any evidence that this occurred. Right. I'm not seeing anywhere where they're saying, well, this is the constitutional issue that is at, because of, we caught this Russian agent red-handed with money, going into a meeting with an opposition, with a Georgia Dream Party representative. None of that happened.
It's the
right?
same
At
evidence
least,
from 2016, right? Well, the other side won, so it must have happened.
Right. So anyway, I am not a fan of Russia. I'm not a fan of Putin. This Georgia Dream Party, I have no idea what their plank is, what their platform is. I probably don't like them either. But then again, I don't like pretty much anybody in this. I mean, like, I don't really I don't think from a U.S. standpoint, we have a real interest in this. So why do I even care about the story? The reason I care about the story is these tensions don't have the ability to flare up into open conflict. And then it's kind of like this little Maidan thing that was happening in Kiev back in, 2022. Yeah, I didn't care about that. It turned it. Well, I know. I'm just saying the Maidan protests.
Which was in 2014.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the invasion of I know. I'm thinking of the beginning, but then I'm actually thinking about their invasion. Once Russia invaded, I mean, then it became everybody's fucking problem. And where did that start? It started at the Maidan protests, right?
And ironically, in 2008, the exact opposite chain of events happened in Georgia. It began with Georgia wanting to be in the EU and wanting to be in NATO at the same time. Russia invaded, and then they had protests, right?
Right.
And let's just remember that Putin's promises to the contrary, they still hold Abkhazia and South Ossetia.
Mm-hmm.
There's semi-autonomous zones that are full of Russian citizens and are held by Russian peacekeepers. Russians were already in Georgia as peacekeepers. They claimed all they were doing was reinforcing their positions in the face of Georgian attacks. I would not be surprised to see something else happen here in that regard, sponsored by the EU as an attempt to take pressure off of Ukraine.
It's what's interesting here is that Russia. So Georgia used to be part of the USSR, right? So this is another state that is now independent that used to be part of the same nation that Russia was part of. Okay, so a lot of times we think of the USSR and Russia as being one and the same. Well, no, the USSR was Russia and 18 other states kind of conglomerated together.
Soviet Socialist Republics. It was the Russian SSR, the Georgian SSR, Ukrainian,
right.
All those places. Lithuanian, Latvian, all of them.
So all of these states were individual kind of, and some had very, I guess very Russian identities, and others had very unique identities, right? A couple that I can think of off the top of my head that have very different kind of ethnic and historical distinctions from Russia are places like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, right? So these areas are in Central Asia, were aligned with Russia and still are to this day, but ultimately are very different from Russia. And the breakup in my mind made sense. But I'll make the same arguments here that I was making back in 2008, and I was making when the Maidan stuff was happening in 2013, 2014, and that is that this is Russia's near abroad. These are areas that Russia has a historical interest in. It may not be Russia, Ukraine was actually way more aligned in like ethnically connected to Russia than say Georgia. But at the same time, I mean, to say that Russia has no interest in Georgia is just plainly on the face of it doesn't make sense. I mean, Georgia and Russia share a common border, right?
They have way more, and their languages are very similar, just like Ukrainian. But they have more interest there than we do.
Yeah.
And our only interest there is opposing Russia.
Well, Armenia and Azerbaijan are both in that same example, but the two of those though are a little different, right? Azerbaijan has a shit ton of oil, which allows them the ability to be somewhat independent, but they have generally decent relations with Russia, despite the fact that Russia backed Armenia in the recent kind of tete-a-tete over Nagorno-Karabakh. So anyway, the point is that if you deny the fact that Russia has a invested interest in any of these things, then you just don't understand A, the Russian mindset, B, just natural foreign affairs, right? I mean, because countries tend to drift together with other countries that they have something in common with, and their shared history alone is enough to make that happen.
Since Armenia came up, let me just say that I just had the most fantastic dinner prepared by the most delightful Armenian woman. So, Scott, I'm sure Scott and Washer, you're both probably going to get to meet her relatively soon. So, actually, you guys might have already met her. She was
I think I did. I think I think I shook hands with her. Yeah.
She's very sweet.
I had a little. Yeah.
Although I think she's roping me into work because she asked me at the end of dinner, she said, "So, you are hunter. You know how to make venison sausage." So I think she's going to make me do some work. So
that does sound a little pointed. Yeah,
it does, right?
Let me ask you this: Did any Armenia talk come up during the Thanksgiving?
A little, not much, because I didn't want to start a fight at the table. But there was some very pointed discussion about British politics, actually led by the young heir, and he was.
I know
his dad. Let me say that. So
I know that Stan, when I've engaged with him in recent times, has been very much like, I don't want to talk about it, because he's just
it's not a fun topic there. So
yeah, there's some sore stuff right there, but I totally understand why. All right, let's jump into our next story here. Watcher, this is one that we kind of talked about briefly, and I think this is the kind of thing that we've got to. You could make an argument that there's not a whole lot of conflict around this, but I disagree. I think this is the kind of thing that brings conflict eventually. By the way, what's up with these TV cameras sticking out of the wall, man? Like, hello, 95 called. They want their fucking, giant TV cameras back. What's up with that?
Well, it's Australia. It's a prison colony.
That's true. I forgot where we're talking about here. They are about 30 years behind. Australian Parliament bans social media for under 16s with the world's first law. This is really interesting from the standpoint.
This is the beginning of a slippery slope, by the way.
Well, right. From the standpoint of like just going like 180 degrees opposite of what
Western ideals are.
Yeah,
yes.
well, so like I'm the first person that doesn't want. I like my daughter just got her first social media account recently, but even then, it's very strict on like what platforms and how you have to have it kind of set up with the security settings and all this kind of stuff. No pictures, all these kind of rules, right? And she's 14, so. That's pretty late in America. I mean, we just bought her, she just got a phone. So that when we got her the phone, we let her have one social media account. But this is crazy. I mean, I should be the person that kind of goes along with this, but I don't go along with this.
And neither. Militant Roots has it right. It's the parents' jobs, not the state.
That's right.
And first, if you say, well, we can't have it for the 16-year-olds. We can't have it for convicted felons, or we can't have it for socially irresponsible people who say the wrong things. That's where it ends up, right? It starts moving down that road.
Well, the interesting thing for me is, let me just kind of hit the first couple things here, but the third paragraph has the key thing for me. Social media ban for children under 16 passed the Australian Parliament on Friday in a world's first law. The law makes platforms including TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, Reddit, and X, and Instagram liable for fines up to 50 million Australian dollars, or 33 million. Never mind, I was going to make a joke. Or $33 million US for systemic failures to prevent children younger than 16 from holding accounts. The Senate passed the bill on Thursday. This is what's crazy to me. Passed the bill on Thursday, 34 votes to 19. The House of Representatives on Wednesday overwhelmingly approved the bill, 102 votes to 13. So just the massive amount of nanny state and authoritarian kind of, I know what's best for you and your children is just absolutely insane. But then again, this is the country that had concentration camps for its own people during.
I don't want to believe conspiracy theories, but the number 33 came up an awful lot in that story.
It sure did.
Anyway.
But real quick, the fun part about this is, gentlemen, do you know what the population of Australia is and all of its protectorates?
It's like
27 million. It's less than a state. If you're going to try and enact this kind of shit, you at the very minimum need what the EU has, which is enough people that it would make anyone give a shit. But the fact is for 27 million people, if you turn around to Elon Musk and say, we're going to fine you $9 billion, Elon Musk is going to say, piss up a rope. X is no longer available in Australia.
Well, it sounds to me more like it's a money grab, right? Like, oh, look, it's a chance to find somebody a few $1 million that we can then spend.
Well, you know what they'll do? They'll have some sort of like, click this or use a credit card or whatever to secure your account or something along these lines, right?
And J-Card beat me to it, but things like this and the you need to have ID to get online thing are why you need to take Ground Rod level 1 and 2 from Combat Studies Group. You will learn how to get around all of that.
Yeah,
and secure your online presence and actually navigate freely. Digital tradecraft.
Just a VPN alone would get them around almost any.
But you have to know that one of the biggest points he teaches is know your VPNs, because a lot of them are the exact opposite of what you want.
Yeah,
correct. So, many of them are actual fucking honeypot programs that are funded by the very agencies who you are trying to protect yourself against.
Hi, NordVPN. We're talking about you. Anyway.
Yeah. I'll tell you personally, Proton is where I go, ladies and gents.
Yeah, Proton Solid, Calyx OS VPN.
Well, here's the other thing too. Even if you want a free VPN, Proton has a limited version available for free as well. So there's always
that. K's class will also teach you a lot of really, really neat and cool things. Like, for example, your laptop has its own wireless card, right? But that has a MAC address associated with it. If you buy like an $8 USB wireless card, it's a randomized MAC address. So it's not yours. Crazy little things like that.
Yeah, because the MAC address identifies your hardware. Just if you're not sure, if you're not tracking what that does. All right, let me continue on. Platforms now have a social responsibility. Anytime I see the word social in a law, I just want to basically not like it. Social responsibility to ensure the safety of our kids is a priority for them. What the crazy thing is, kids can get on Pornhub in America, yet I wonder if Pornhub will be on this ban list. Ironically, it probably won't be.
So what's funny about this is they talk about the social responsibility. Can you show me where my social responsibility is codified? Because you can't.
Yeah.
And the other thing is a local news story here, Sealy Lake, the next town to the south. A woman went into the fire department, the volunteer fire department for something, and she saw that one of the volunteer firefighters who was there doing something was carrying a concealed firearm. Montana is a constitutional carry state, so there's nothing wrong with that. But she complained to the township board and the county that this man made her feel uncomfortable. So now, because of one person being uncomfortable, the fire department's got to reprimand this guy based on nothing because there's no policy against it and it's the state law. And they're going to change the policy to where members of the fire department cannot carry a concealed firearm on fire department property. Even the fire chief has said this is crazy because we're so remote that it takes the sheriff 2 hours to get here if we call. You're putting us at risk to a violent attack. So why do I say all that right now? Because it talks about social responsibility, and their part is we have a responsibility to make everyone feel comfortable. Where is that? Where is that codified? Where is the law that says one of my responsibilities as an American is to make you, Scott, feel comfortable? There isn't one. Right?
There is not.
Correct.
And
yeah, you have no right to comfortability.
Karen, I don't care if you have a phrase with the word codified. It's actually the right word. Sorry. You just have to deal with it. But the point is that they keep saying your social responsibility. You have to keep others safe. You have to do this. I don't know where that is listed, right? I don't have a reason for that. So,
yeah, it's just, one of those kind of things where so much of what leftists do is about feeling good, right? And whether it's the law against landmines or whatever, this, all this climate change stuff is all about their feelings, right? And feeling like they're doing something when in fact it actually does nothing. And so this is just another one of these kind of things. It makes them feel good. The problem is this is actually going to impact their citizens and impact the liberty of their citizens. So, anyway, so
well, they know that. They know that they're globalists, battening down the hatches. So,
let's see. Social media ban legislation has been released and passed within a week, and as a result, no one can confidently explain how it will work in practice. The community and platforms are in the dark about what exactly is required of them. Yeah, so this is another thing. I mean, it just pops up and just happens, right? And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, how are we gonna make this happen? I don't know. You got to figure that out. Social media companies, fuck you. I'm not gonna be in Australia anymore. That's how that works.
Yep.
While the major parties support the ban, many child welfare and mental health advocates are concerned about the unintended consequences. Wow, you mean there might be unintended consequences? This probably will hurt vulnerable young people the most, especially the regional communities and especially the LGBTQI. Now, this is one area where this may actually, you might see an interesting,
you might see a downturn in it. Yeah,
exactly. Because if you don't have the ability to kind of get the propaganda to these young kids, then how are they going to know that they should be doing all these things, right? Right. So maybe there are some, like I said, I'm not a fan of social media. So there will be positive effects of this. I just don't like the way they're doing it. The way I would do it is like, listen, parents, take responsibility for your children's, what they're putting into their brain. And so to that end, get them off social media. It's one thing to watch a YouTube video from time to time, but all these shorts, the brain rot, all this crap is just absolutely damaging, I think, on a societal level. Exemptions will apply for health and education services, including YouTube, Messenger Kids, WhatsApp, Kids Helpline, and Google Classroom. The core focus of this legislation is simple. It demands that social media companies take responsible steps to identify and remove underage users from their platforms. This is a responsibility these companies should have been fulfilling long ago. But why? Why should they keep kids? I mean, some of these, let's be honest. How many people have put YouTube on the phone or in the iPad and handed it to their kid, for 10 minutes or something because you need to?
It's a new parenting technique. You said a phrase there that should scare everyone to death, and that's Google Classroom.
Yeah.
What that's doing is it's outsourcing education and knowledge to Google, and we've done that largely. What I challenge you all to do is get someone under the age of 24 and ask them a historical question, but tell them they cannot use their phone to find the answer. Guess what? They can't do it. And it's not their fault. It's what they've been taught, that it's okay to be able to look up the answer. And the whole point is, if you always look up the answer, 1984 becomes the solution, because now they can modify that answer before it gets to you. And you have nothing in your brain to challenge that answer. We used to know things. Now we know how to look things up, which is not the same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. The other thing that I don't like about the Google Classrooms is it basically onboards an entire generation into like Gmail, and it basically turns them into Google consumers without ever, any kind of discernible competition.
It's the same thing that Mac did back in the day, where they donated free computers to elementary schools and middle schools. Mac almost conquered the world because every young person of my generation grew up using Macs right up until high school, at which point they weren't donating them free to the high schools, so all the high schools picked the cheaper option, which was PCs.
All right, I think we're good on this story. Anyway, this is just, ultimately, I don't have a problem getting kids off social media. I just have a problem with these types of draconian laws that essentially, put the onus of parenting onto some private company that's just like, well, how did I become your parent?
Your legislation is not parenting. So,
even if this is almost like a great time for that aphorism, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And so that's exactly what this is. I get the understanding. I understand the intent, but good initiative, poor judgment in how they're executing it. All right. And here's the other thing too, Joe, that I've looked at some of the comments on this, and people are like, I want to have my kid be able to be on social media, or I want to have, it's like they're focusing on this. Oh, I don't think kids should be on social media. Okay, great. I don't think they should be on social media either. None of the Australians are cluing into is the authoritarian creep, right? There's a little, the one exception that I've seen is Rebel Media has, Yavi has been kind of pretty good on this, but he's about the only one that I've seen in the Australia sphere that's really kind of worried about the authoritarian piece of this.
Steve in the
I would
YouTube
like
chat has it right.
Oh, hold on a second. Watcher Joe's talking.
Steve in the YouTube chat has it right. It's a backdoor way to ultimately register internet users, prove your age to log on. Another example of this is I refuse to buy alcohol at stores that swipe your ID. Why? Because when they swipe that ID in their register system, it keeps a record, right? Look, if I've got an age-restricted product, look at my ID, hand it back to me. Don't register my purchase, right? And this is exactly the same thing that's going to happen with the internet. Oh, you got to prove your age to log on. Well, you're going to have to show government-issued ID, log that. Now it's forever. This online identity is forever tied to you. You really should be able to be out there. And it doesn't matter, David, that's a good point. How much does a man drink? It doesn't matter how much I drink. The problem is somebody stores that data. And if I eventually become an enemy of the state, they can then find that data and use it against me in some crazy way.
So two things on that. I have experience with having to swipe my ID at the Class 6 when you buy things. Mm-hmm. And part of that is age verification, and that's because the military is the one selling the alcohol, right? And so the military is not what you would call a pro-liberty kind of space, and that's just one of the things that you give up. That being said, I don't drink that much, so I don't care. But
that's not the
the
point.
other,
See,
you're
using that same argument of if you're not doing anything wrong, why do you care? That's not
what I'm saying is that's a very closed environment. It's the military selling it to military people, and then for us, it's rationing.
It's a federal
over here.
government. It's not a closed anything.
No, it's in a rationed environment. It's duty free. You can only buy so much per. They will actually stop you if you buy like a fourth bottle of whiskey or something.
Bingo.
Because it's rationed.
There it is.
Yeah, not only
because
that,
it's rationed. Right. No, it's
Limey's got the big bingo.
But here's the thing, right, Joe? In the States, right? The thing that I don't get is how people will give these like, oh, just get the little club card and swipe your club card for your discounts. No, swipe your club card so they can track every thing that you're buying. Every time you go to Publix. So I always refuse those programs because I don't care if I'm going to save.
Teach you how to get phone numbers for that, and then it's not tied to you. It's tied to some other thing.
Other thing, right? Yeah. Anyway, so I it's like on one hand I understand why you have to do it because it's actually a treat. It's part of the SOFA treaty, actually, which is what I thought was kind of bizarre, but that's the way it is. But anyway, so
I'm gonna address the first comment that I was gonna try to go to, and we'll address what he followed up with later. We restrict the drinking of those under 21. Why not social media? Well, first of all, us restricting the drinking of those under 21 was fought tooth and nail, and federal laws were twisted in ways they were never intended to be in order to force different states in order to adhere to that, because various different cultures have various different reasons for allowing different things. For instance, most of Europe, I believe, you can drink at 16. There are a lot of cultural things that honestly the state should not have the ability or any way to yes, is it probably wise that we don't drink until we're 21? Absolutely. Should the state be able to force that? Fuck no. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Are you kidding me? No.
Well, I mean, like I'm not one of these guys who says that we shouldn't we shouldn't have, we should have teenagers be able to buy, like bourbon and things like this. That's not me, right? At the same time,
should the feds be given a mechanism to do that?
Do you get the feeling that underage kids aren't drinking just as much?
No. I think that I'll think. What's funny, Joe? I think when we were kids, I think we drank more than kids do nowadays.
That's probably true because now they're injecting themselves with hormones.
Right.
Just
there's all kinds of worse things that they're doing now, honestly. And to be quite honest with you, they're smoking pot, right? I mean, kids smoke pot when we were kids too, but very rarely. Like 1 in maybe 100 kids. Smoke pot when I was when I was 15, but now it's like fucking.
It reminds me of I know the youth, and I can tell you that it's less popular now than it was. Look, man, the minute you legalized it, it became way less popular. Kids are doing way fucking worse things now.
Oh, I will disagree with you on that wholeheartedly because I lived in Detroit. And once they legalized it, the entire place smelled like weed and gets worse every single week.
Well, yeah. And the other thing that we have over here is there's other things now kind of are creeping in, like with the CBD and other cannabinoids that are coming in and all that kind of. I understand CBD is not a drug the way, THC is, but edibles are huge, like getting caught coming into Korea through the postal system.
Deborah Dan made a point that I need to talk about because it brought up a funny thought. He said that that his mom had to get a fake ID. You remember the Breakfast Club when he goes, "Why do you have a fake ID?" And Anthony Michael Hall said, "To borrow books from the library, of course.
Right. Hey, Watcher, I want you to put this in your pipe and smoke it. Teen cannabis abuse has increased 245% over 20 years, studies finds. This is a 2022
right.
study.
Well, there you go. Well, I'll just tell you that it's not what they talk about doing on social media anymore.
That's right, because it's free to get, everybody gets it. Now they're going for heroin, or they're going for meth, or they're going for
And I'll be honest,
fentanyl or something.
Kids in my high school. Uh-oh. I'm back. There we go.
Yeah,
There you go. We hear you now.
we got you.
Definitely shit tons of prescription pill overdoses that killed, like, I think 1 in 50 or something.
Yeah, like Oxy was a big problem, but I think that's actually gone down quite a bit since, that's one area where the feds has actually done a pretty good job of kind of cracking down, I think, a little bit on that stuff, but the pill mills and all that kind of thing. But I think it's still out there. It's just less than it was, say, 10 years ago. The Obama administration was big
and
on
now
that
the pill
stuff,
mills
right,
are
Joe?
sometimes fentanyl.
Yeah.
High people don't revolt.
What's that?
High people do not revolt or rebel against authority.
Very good. Well, that and entertained people, right? It's like keep them entertained and keep them high. All right. Let's move on to the next story here, shall we? So little hotness going on in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Let's see. This is AP story. The U.S. Navy destroyed.
I can't believe you didn't call it the Gulf of Aden, because you intentionally mispronounce things all the time.
Well, but I don't think I've ever done Aden before. That's so stupid. That joke wouldn't even occur to me, Joe. I mean, you got to give me a break. At least those Ukrainian names are tricky, right?
What's better? Yemen, because it rhymes with. Never mind.
Yeah, I got you. U.S. Navy. Speaking of seamen, U.S. Navy destroyers shot down 7 missiles and drones fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels at warships and 3 American merchant vessels they were escorting through the Gulf of Aden. No
this
damage.
Is the Navy stomping their feet, saying, "See, we can do it."
Right.
No damage or injuries were from doing it thus far.
Hey, Joe, my question is, how much did they spend to shoot these down?
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, they weren't shooting down like $20,000 drones with a $7 million missile. These are ballistic missiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles that are fairly high end for Yemen. That is. So at least I guess there's that, right? But I bet every one of our missiles costs more than theirs. U.S. Central Command said late Sunday the destroyer Stockdale and USS O'Kane shot down and destroyed 3 anti-ship ballistic missiles, 3 drones, and 1 anti-ship cruise missile. The merchant ships were not identified. So I've since heard that this number has increased up to like 16, but maybe this is an older story. The Houthis claimed that the attack is in a statement and said that they had targeted the U.S. destroyers and 3 supply ships belonging to the American Army. I don't know if that's the case. In the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Houthi attacks for months have targeted shipping through the waterways where $1 trillion of goods pass annually over the Israeli-Hamas war in Gaza and Israel's ground offensive in in Lebanon. A ceasefire was announced in the latter last week. So, Joe, I mean, Yemen's not going away, right? And I didn't hear anything about us striking back at launchers or anything along these lines.
No, and I don't know that we have any assets close enough to do so. I think that they're farther up the Red Sea or in the Med. But I do know that there was some sort of an exchange of gunfire between our friends at Ambry and some local hooligans in boats. So things seem to be picking up in that area again.
Well, we just happen to have that, Joe. This is my next link here is, so we have the both the high-end threat and yeah, he didn't know we were going to need audio. And so we've got the high-end threat with the destroyer shooting stuff down, and then we have the low-end threat with Ambray doing what they do best. Give the call, Pat. What's the warning shot?
He took off his head. Now his friends are warned.
I get the feeling that was,
I'm pretty sure that round went right in the wheelhouse since nobody's steering the boat anymore.
and now,
housing group.
Hold on. You got no. We got to see that again. We got to see it because obviously those first few rounds took out whoever was piloting the boat. Because I don't think they planned to ram the boat with that little tiny skiff.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that boat bounced off. I would have thought it would have just crunched right into it.
Yeah.
Well done, boys. Well done.
Well, it's sometimes it's tough and sometimes it's not tough. So I'll be honest with you. When I saw that coming in, I thought for a second it was basically going to be one of those boat bombs, is what I thought, and maybe it was. And
that's why now the warning shots are centered on the deck because there is no time for a warning shot. You're trying to detonate any explosives on board prematurely. That's why we keep seeing those explosions off the side of the ship, right? They're trying to set them off. So, no, this is not from a mixed Russian, South African PMC. It is from a British one. The Arctic boy.
All right.
But they do have people from all over the world working for it, although it's predominantly British, American, and French Marines.
So anyway, definitely hot times in the Gulf of Aden. Anything else we need to talk about let's be honest, Joe. I hope if there is unfinished business in the world that needs to be taken care of before we kind of unask the AO, it is Yemen. We need to put a serious hurting on those fuckers before now. And we don't need to go into the ground. We just need to do it. Navy can do it from the air. They just need to do it properly.
Well, the problem is what infrastructure do you target in Yemen? There is none. They use mobile launchers. Military. They park them underground in caves. You got a hard time finding it. You have a very short window to hit that launcher before it is gone.
Well, Joe, you know how it is. That's not an easy job to do, right? They just need to do their job, right? And it may be hard. It may take a couple months to have retribution fully on these people, but I'm sure if we turn the big eye of Sauron, on them, I'm sure we'll find some things where we could do. Oh, we lost Watcher. I guess his connection.
Yeah, he's got to come back in.
So I'll wait for him. All right. Hey, Joe, you want to talk a little bit about tactical-wisdom.com real quick?
After I finish this type, the reason why you sometimes hear these British and American PMCs shouting in Russian is because predominantly ships' crews in that region of the world are Russian. But anywho, I wrote an article last week about the need for something other than a gun for self-defense, having some skills other than firearm skills. And we'll be offering a lot more of the combatives classes here at Camp Ponderosa throughout the year. We'll be doing some knife and stick defense and unarmed self-defense and ground fighting, all that good stuff to get you ready for whatever may come. I may get attacked somewhere where I can't carry a gun, or sometimes a gun is not the proper response. The guy punches you in the face, you can't just shoot him. You gotta have some other skills. So we're going to talk about that. That is coming up. And I'm also going to talk about how hunting, or the analog of hunting, just getting out in the woods and getting a sight picture on an animal and not shooting it, is a great way to practice your scouting and movement skills and your fieldcraft. So lots of good stuff coming. Also, watch my Twitter feed today. There will be a lot of Cyber Monday deals being dropped on there.
Yeah, the Cyber Monday is definitely there's a lot of stuff out there, especially in the gun and gear world. So this is a good opportunity. All of our favorite websites have got deals going. Joe, I know you're going to be posting links to places you've got the affiliate deals with. So check out Joe's feed today and check out some of these other websites that you frequent. Give patriots your money, right? Don't look for an opportunity to buy things from, it's just cheaper over here. Well, look for an opportunity to find a deal where, from people who don't hate you.
Well, and a lot of this stuff made by guys from our side are handcrafted. I made a joke the other day over dinner that it's weird the number of Green Berets and SEALs who have gone on to become sewers and making gear. But the truth is because they got out in the field, they tried the government issue gear and said, you know what, I think I can make this better. I've got a couple of ideas. Exumbris Designs comes to mind.
Yeah,
because this stuff is fantastic. So support those guys as much as you can, and guys like Wendigo Works and some of the others. Scott, if you had to have a color, if you had a plate carrier that was reversible, it was one color on one side, you flip it over, it's color on another one. We know one side would be DNC, but what color would the other side be? For example, mine is going to be Rhodesian brushstroke and M81.
So I think if I'm going to have a meme pattern on one side, I want to have a low vis pattern on the other. And the low vis pattern that I would pick would probably be like brown or OD green, or maybe like even a gray. Something that's
gray is not a bad color.
No, it's not at all. And and if you're doing night desert camo on one side, then wolf gray actually kind of makes sense on the other side.
If I may, just briefly, dear Wendigo Works, I, a poor working Wendigo, would love your gear. Pretty please. Just saying.
I'm going to tell them to watch the show. What Matt and I teach in the Scout and Recce course is that gray is the most common color in nature, actually, as opposed to browns and greens. So gray works in a lot of places.
Yeah, but black is very rare in nature. That's
black is not a natural color. And HVAC one says that I'm causing divorces all over the country. Yes, I am. Especially when it comes to solar panels, right?
Right.
So,
oh man.
Yeah. So definitely check out the selections on some of our favorite websites out there. I've seen multiple ARs under $500. I think somebody had one under $400, right?
Yeah, I posted one that was like $299 for a very basic AR. Somebody goes, "Oh, but it's a stripped down one." Yeah, because the truth is, when you buy an AR, you strip it down yourself and rebuild it in the way you want it.
Joe, the lower parts kit plus a decent forged lower, assuming it's got a decent forged lower, that's worth it right there by itself.
Yeah,
but absolutely. I bet the barrel and the upper are fine too. You may want a different carrier. You may want a different handguard. Right? Just buy one of those and then play with it. Make something. Take some time to buy the parts. I'll be honest with you. I want to get my my SIG, God gun, right? But at the same time, I would love to build an AR just from the ground up, with just selecting parts that have always kind of caught my fancy, and I may not have the money to buy it right out the box, but once you get the receiver, the rest of it's I'll probably use my old Bushmaster receiver actually to build it. So
Yeah, because you're just rebuilding everything inside. Doesn't matter.
right, yeah, exactly right. All right. Watcher, let's jump right into this Syrian hellhole topic here. I'll be honest with you guys. I mean, Syria, it was very desolate. The war in Syria back in the Civil
Squishy
War
Hunter,
era.
well played, Squishy Hunter.
Scott, a Sigger, yeah. Well, I'm not a Sigger. I don't have any Sig weapons, but I would.
Next thing you know, he'll be a Nog or two.
This is clarified, Joe. I'm a boiled custard guy.
Oh boy.
But boiled custard is an eggnog. You tell me you don't want to spear an MCX spear light, and okay, I don't believe you, but okay.
I actually don't want to spear. Not
you. I'm talking. I know what you want. That you want 7.62. That's your thing.
Although I scoff at people who tell me that you can't kill a deer with 5.56 because wink wink. I happen to know you can.
I happen to know you can too. And not all 5.56 is created equal. Joe, I did see you looking longingly at my 5.56 AK. So I'm just saying.
That's a lie. I said it was an
It's
abomination.
a damn lie. It's like your friend who says, I don't like Asian women. And you go to the club and he's looking at all these Asian women. And it's like, and there's drool coming out the side of his mouth or something like that.
So my 7.62 versus 5.56 thing is all about geography, right?
Yep.
If I was still back in Metro Detroit and that was where I was going to be forever, 5.56 every day. But out here in the sticks where there's more brush and larger creatures, 7.62 all day.
Well,
different tools for different jobs.
Afghanistan was a fight that almost invariably happened outside of the maximum effective range of AR platform rifles, and not just the 5.56, but also a lot of our 7.62 platforms. But when you were in gunfire range, it was almost always 300 plus yards, and I know soldiers can hit targets past 300 yards. Especially with ACOGs, you could really get very accurate out to 500, 600 yards with those ACOGs. But the problem is that round just starts to lose its effectiveness out there in those ranges.
It's just bouncing off of things, right?
Well, and the drop is significant, and wind starts to affect it because it's a lighter round. 7.62 by 39 is going to be a better round for those ranges.
As Matt points out, I get first round hits at 450 regularly with 7.62 by 39. But also the poor man's ACOG, the primary arms ACCS reticle, every bit as good and way more affordable.
Yeah.
So,
I'll be honest with you. The 5.56 AK is absolutely it's an aesthetic choice because I like the AK-74 aesthetic. And then the other part of it that I like is 5.56 in America is just the round. I would always go with probably a 5.56 primary rifle unless I really needed the battle rifle. And then I personally just would never do 7.62 by 39 because, there's not a whole lot of domestic production of that. And I would just 5.56, 7.62 NATO. Those would just be my two rounds. Not to say there's anything wrong with 7.62 39. Just All right, guys. So the Syrian thing, man. It was bleak back when the Civil War started in 2011 or so, and it got even bleaker when ISIS really got going. Basically came across the berm from Iraq into, it really got it generated in Syria and then went into Iraq. But ultimately, It took a couple years before before ISIS really got going. Yes, I know that. I know that they were on the decline when Trump came in, but Trump really absolutely did a good job of snuffing them out. Though I do believe they were still getting CIA assistance. Let me pause that. They were getting assistance from the CIA through Turkey. So it wasn't like the CIA guys was going to ISIS and giving them money. I think Turkey was still assisting them, and it was mostly through gas smuggling and things like that. Syria had really kind of locked down for the last couple of years. In the three sections, you're at the FDS section, the Turkish section, and then the Syrian section. But now that's all broken wide open, and all three groups are back in the fighting again. So this first story, death toll from Islamist assault on Aleppo nears 500 as Iran says firmly supports Assad. Hey, Joe, here's the thing. I wasn't surprised by the attack on Aleppo. I was absolutely surprised how quickly the Syrians, basically just completely collapsed in Aleppo. Your thoughts?
Well, they haven't had an active fight there in a long time. I think it's just like what happened in northern Iraq. It was simply the speed of advance, right? It was a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Give them a week, right, to get back on their feet and firm up a line, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen, right? So we'll see. But ultimately, this is not looking good if you are a Syrian supporter like Iran or Russia. These are the two kind of major powers behind what's going on in Syria right now, at least Bassad's. The interesting thing, Joe, is that the Syrian regime is very tolerant of Christians, and the HTS guys who are coming in, streaming in from the Turkish section, are absolutely basically just Al Qaeda / ISIS clones, right? And we talked about this on Friday. Many of these members have ISIS patches and things like that on their uniforms. So I don't imagine that the Christian community that's in Aleppo, there's Orthodox Christians and there's Coptic Christians, I believe, both in this area. I don't think that they're going to have a good time with the new landlords in Aleppo.
There's Chaldeans too.
Chaldeans, yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about. Coptics is more Egypt, I think. President Bashar al-Assad has reportedly
Egypt thing.
Yeah. Has reportedly sent large reinforcements to the southern Aleppo area after al-Qaeda-linked insurgents shocked offensive, which captured the city. Assad said he will defend Syria's stability and territorial integrity. The London-based political opposition group Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said Sunday that the total death toll from the fighting is over 400 people on both sides. The tally includes the deaths of 214 members of HTS, an allied faction which launched this assault. I'll be honest with you.
Watcher, can you mute for a second, Watcher? Because we can't hear anything but what's going on there.
I got him. I'll be honest with you. There's more than 400 dead just Syrian soldiers, just from the bodies I've seen in these different videos things like this.
And you know what? I always laugh when they say the human rights group Syrian Observatory. First of all, it's one guy, and he's in London. So
yeah.
Anyway,
let's see. At least 137 pro-government forces and 61 civilians have been killed. Way more than that. AFP has described the military campaign that launched out of Idlib as being coordinated from an operations room in Turkey. No kidding. This whole thing has Turkey's fingerprints on this. We'll talk about that in the next story.
Oh, yeah.
AFP wrote on Friday that opposition sources in touch with Turkish intelligence in Turkey has given a green light to the offensive. AFP's correspondent in HTS al-Qaeda-held Idlib additionally reports the jihadists and their Turkey-backed allies took orders from the Joint Operations Command. A fresh report, it's a the Turkish are running this offensive. This is why I'm pretty sure it's pretty damn coordinated. A fresh reported Israeli media has acknowledged that this is all but about weakening the Iran axis. Now, this is the part that I find to be interesting, right? We talked about this the other day on Friday, Joe, about how, not too long ago, Turkey was saying, we're going to invade, Gaza to support Hamas against Israel, right? But yet here we see not too much later, 6, 7, at the most a year later, we're seeing a Turkish coordinated offensive that's basically, it looks like it's being coordinated with Israel, if I'm honest.
The truth of the matter is that Erdogan would like to step into the void created by the death of al-Baghdadi. He would like to be the caliph. And he sees this as a way to ingratiate himself with those who would make him so.
Before World War I, who controlled Syria, Joe?
Before World War I?
Yeah, the Ottoman Turks.
Yeah.
I'm sure Erdogan would love.
Yes, yeah,
yes, right. But I'm sure that Erdogan would love to add pieces to the Ottoman Empire back to the fold. Let's see. The primary reason for the success of the rebel offensive and the collapse of the regime forces is the effectiveness of Israel's military operations against Hezbollah in Iran since October 8th, 2023. HTS has been building up military capability for years in preparation for such an offensive. The group operates a professionally staffed military academy run by defectors from the Syrian military and has restructured its armed wing into a conventional armed force structure. Syrian expert at the Middle East Institute said in recent years, it's also developed special forces units dedicated to covert operation, lightning raids behind enemy lines, and nighttime operations. And then wasn't there some sort of like a jihadi, like PMC group that was involved in this, that supported HTS back in the day? I can't remember what they were called, like not Mahdi group. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway,
the Mahdi army did send some of their people out for this purpose, but there were a couple of Chechen PMCs that trained others.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let's see. I've got the answer right here. Malhama Tactical was initially formed in 2015 and later absorbed by HTS in 2017, following the death of its founder. But those guys are still around because I've seen reference to them. I think what they became is basically the special forces of HTS. It's since played a role providing tactical and operational training to non-state armed groups, enhancing the professionalism of HTS's forces. And I have seen some evidence of some training in these groups, and a lot of that comes from Turkey as well, I think. Let's see. As for Iran, it says that it firmly supports Assad. In a new statement, Iran's top diplomat Abbas Agarachi said that on Sunday he would soon arrive in Damascus to deliver a strong message of support for Syria's government and military. Iranian state media said, "I'm going to Damascus to convey the message that the Islamic Republic of the Syrian government." That we firmly support the Syrian government and army, he says. I'll be honest with you, man. Watcher, we've got this. Is it? But we're not ISIS or Al Nusra, and of course they've got both. The Al Nusra. These patches that were very popular with both ISIS and Al Nusra. Now, this is not the full ISIS flag, but in this area, if you brandish something that's black like that, you are automatically kind of aligning yourself with that ideology and some of those ideas. And let's be honest, there's a lot of former ISIS members that are in the ranks of this force. Now, that being said, the guy next to him also has an Adidas hat on, so go figure. Who said they were consistent?
Well, in point of fact, I think it's like a BBB, which is probably a Chinese ripoff of same, but
yeah. Let's see. Let me.
I want to point out there's a couple of irregularities with that guy on the far, I guess, left of our side, right of all the others. One, he doesn't have a beard, which is a problem in that corner of the world. And he has a yellow armband on. It's interesting. Antifa uses yellow armbands to identify their security. It's just weird.
So one of the things that's been noted on a lot of these is that a lot of them have blue and yellow arm tape, like actual tape and bands, like this, right? And so there's been a lot of chatter about Ukrainian trainers that have been helping because they're looking for opportunities to potentially hit Russian forces in the area.
Yeah.
So I would be interested to learn more about that, to see if that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I'd like to know where that guy is from, because he's not from there. So
all right. Let's Watcher, if you could go I'm gonna just drop the link in the private chat because it's easier to look at. I want to do a little map time with the chat here. So this is the Syria live UA map. So you can kind of see the progress that they've made. So the green area, just real quick, the green area is the Turkish backed HTS, and they're Free Syria Army, and then there's also another the SAF. I can't remember. There's two big groups within that section. Then you've got the yellow section out here, which is the Kurdish region. That's where all the U.S. forces are in the place. You've got another Turkish-held group that's in the
the acknowledged U.S. forces.
Yes, absolutely. You've got another green area down here, which is, if I remember correctly, this is where Atnaf is, which is where the U.S. base in southern Syria is. And then you've got, you've got all the red, which is the Syrian forces, right? And so if you look, they're pushing towards Hama, right? And so if you just kind of draw the line, right? You've got up here, you've got Aleppo. So Aleppo is in this deep green section here with all those kind of green things about it. If you could zoom in just right. Yeah. Go up a little bit, like scroll it up a little bit. Keep going up a little bit. Yeah. You got to drag it down. No, it's not dragging. You can unmute yourself. All right. See where that cluster of green is kind of at the top? That's Aleppo. And so they've added quite a lot of territory since Aleppo fell. And now they're pushing towards Hama. Now, if you look at if you just kind of follow south, then it goes Hama, then Homs, and then down to Damascus. And the interesting thing is if they get to Homs, they pretty much cut off the entire area. So you got Latakia governorate over here. And Joe, what's in Latakia?
You mean Latakia?
Yeah, whatever.
Both a Russian naval base and a Russian air base.
That's right. So the Russians have their big base, the big air base over here. And that's where they build up a lot of their infrastructure in the area. And so, it would be really interesting if that section of Syria got cut off from Damascus. And that's exactly what would happen if they continue to go south to Homs. You would essentially have Russian trucks having to basically drive through Lebanon in order to get to Damascus, which would be ironic and funny. Or, flying there, but, even still, they would have to fly over either hostile terrain or Lebanese terrain. So interesting developments there. That's the kind of more broader kind of strategic view of what's going on, or operational view. All right, let's move on to the next one here. So a lot of stuff on X has been a great place to kind of pick up videos and it's just kind of little things that are happening. So here's the footage of yesterday's Russian airstrike on central Aleppo. So Russians were kind of asleep at the wheel when everybody came in, and now they've started kind of dropping bombs. Lots of reports of urban bombing of forces. And I find this to be, interesting. Russians definitely have no compunctions of bombing civilian areas at this point in the game. It's just another day in the neighborhood for them.
Define a civilian area in Syria.
A built-up area, a city, because let's be honest. I mean, if you're out in the field by your, kind of on your own, you're isolated. But
insurgents call civilian areas camouflage.
Camouflage. It's exactly right, and which is exactly what Hezbollah has been doing for so long. And shockingly enough, Israel has probably, despite the amount of civilian areas that they've destroyed or built up areas, they've shockingly not killed as many civilians as they could have. I hate that view. All right. Let's move on to the next one. All right. The next post is, I thought this was interesting, right? So it's interesting. So the SDF has started to get into the picture, right? The U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Force launched a major operation from the east into western districts of Aleppo this morning, securing the Aleppo international airport from the Syrian regime and halting the advance of HTS as well as other Turkish-backed opposition groups.
I think Aleppo International Airport is a gross misnomer. I doubt there's been many flights in or out in the last, decade.
Well, it's like all you have to have is like one flight a year, right? And you get to say you're
I suppose.
So yes. Anyway, the whole seeing the SDF get involved is interesting. They don't have a lot of big tanks and big kind of heavy gear. They're mostly counter ISIS forces that we've trained, that we spent a lot of time with special operations guys training their forces. They've got some very capable special ops folks in their ranks, but I just since we've kind of dialed back the counter ISIS stuff, I don't know how embedded we are with the SDF forces. I would imagine we still have SF guys and whatnot still working with them.
I think so. Some guys from Ground Branch.
Oh yeah. I would see if you actually want to find the people that are actively being supported by U.S. forces, it would be the SDF, right? The money may be getting to the HTS and things like that, but it's getting through cutouts. The people who actually have U.S. forces directly embedded with and training and all that kind of stuff, that's the SDF. All right. So this let's see, let's move on to the next bit here. So this is the story that kind of refers back to what I said with the Turkish kind of getting very involved with this. Turkish intelligence directing extremist offensive on northwestern Syria. This is the cradle.co. This is a kind of left bias paper, but I felt that the story actually was pretty legit for the most part. Let's see. Militants from the Al-Qaeda affiliated HTS currently invading Aleppo, Syria's second largest city, are taking orders from the Turkish intelligence, France news agency reported. HTS, formerly known as Nusra Front, launched a lightning offensive on the group's stronghold in Idlib government from the group's stronghold in the Idlib government. Its fighters took over numerous villages in Aleppo countryside before taking control of large parts of Aleppo city on Saturday, including the ancient citadel. AFP writes the opposition sources in touch with Turkish intelligence said Turkey had given the green light for the offensive. An AFP correspondent in the HTS-held Idlib further reported that the jihadists and their Turkish-backed allies took orders. So this is referring to the same story from earlier. Izvestia reported that the current HTS attack on Aleppo was coordinated between Turkish, Ukrainian, and French intelligence with Israeli support and U.S. approval. The Russian newspaper said the assault was originally planned for March, but was launched early in response to events in Lebanon. On Wednesday, a ceasefire took effect to halt 66 days of brutal fighting between Hezbollah and the Israeli army in Lebanon. Just as the ceasefire began, Israel turned its sights on Syria by bombing the Lebanese-Syrian border. And my understanding, Joe, is that Israel's also bombing targets in and around Damascus again. So that doesn't surprise me, but it's
probably hitting Iranian staging areas and ammunition stores.
Yeah, right. Probably the most of their targets are IRGC targets, and Hezbollah, which works for the IRGC. Syria's army sources said on Saturday that Israel was also backing the extremists attacking Aleppo in the areas on the Idlib front. In the past, Israel has kept its support for Al-Qaeda groups in Syria covert so as to not damage their credibility in the eyes of Arabs and Sunni Muslims. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a special security discussion Friday evening with the heads of defense. You know, the interesting thing about it, Joe, is there's a lot of Arabs that actually work and live in Israel, to include the military and the intelligence establishment. I bet that when HTS gets help from Israel, they have no idea they're getting help from Israel because they're talking to some Arab dude who is just bringing the support.
And Israel's good about this, right? Supporting their own enemies, but they're fighting against another enemy of Israel's.
Right. If your enemies aren't fighting each other, then anything you can do to get them to start fighting each other and then just fade into the background is A-OK in my book. In the past, Israel,
please see China, right?
Right. Prime Minister let's see. According to Israeli officials, view the Turkish-backed extremist advance on Aleppo as an opportunity to weaken Syria, which is a key ally of Hezbollah and Iran in the axis of resistance. An unnamed Israeli official told the Hebrew newspaper that fighting is something we need to closely monitor and see how it develops. It doesn't necessarily affect us, especially not in the short term, but any erosion of stability in a neighboring country could also impact us. Here's the thing, Joe. Based on what I'm seeing out of Syria, I mean, Israel needs to be careful what they wish for. The last thing they want is HTS, on the Lebanese border. Now HTS and Hezbollah won't get along, but HTS won't stop. I mean, their ideology is one of expansionists.
But they got a long way to go.
Oh, they do
before they get
there. Poor watcher's having computer problems, so hopefully there he is. Welcome back.
There he is.
That's it. I'm upgrading this thing. It's Cyber Monday. I've already seen that Costco has one for basically the same price I already paid for it, and I'm within the Costco return window. This thing's a piece of shit. I need a better laptop.
Yeah, don't buy laptops from Costco.
Well, no, Costco generally has good pricing on stuff. It's just Cyber Monday. They're like the one. This one has a freaking 4060, and it's basically the same price I paid for this thing.
All right, that's cool. All right. Moving on. So, you know, like I said, this is one of these kind of bad guys versus bad guy, or bad guy versus worst guy, right?
Yeah, I have
At
a hard
least,
time picking a favorite here. Just kill each other. We're
well,
good.
if I had to pick, if to put my money down on a favorite, I'd have to say my favorite would be the Syrian government. The HTS and Al Qaeda is not the good guy. It's not the guy I could ever, in good conscience root for. Especially because of what we saw. Because okay, Al Qaeda is not ISIS, but they're one step removed from ISIS.
I actually
Especially
would be
this.
rooting for the Russians in this. They can slag everyone from the air.
Well, right. So when I was in Syria, I had a discussion with this was an SDF officer. He was one of the liaison people with the Americans that were there. And I told him, I was like, listen, if we pull out, you guys should ally yourself with the Russians and the Syrians, against Turkey and the Al Qaeda guys. And he was like, yeah, it would make sense. But ultimately, the SDF has enough both land, and they've got the oil in their area that they have the ability to be.
You advocated fighting against a NATO ally? How dare you?
I mean, when you hear a crack over your head and you don't know if it's Al Qaeda or Turkey that shot it, you stop caring if they're a NATO ally. Let's see. Oh yeah, because our allies there were basically facing off against it was so bizarre. Joe, I have to tell you, the levels of surrealness, and I have pictures that I can dig up at someday and I'll show you. But looking across the no man's land, right? It was about a mile or so between where the positions that we drove up to and the Turkish kind of border positions. They had these giant Turkish flags over the some of the towers. There was like I think it was a border crossing area, and they had these giant Turkish flags, and it was just like, it's so surreal that we're literally like helping these guys who are pointing guns over at our NATO allies. And of course, a couple of years later, I'm in Turkey, and I was talking to a Turkish special forces guy, and he was a really good dude. And I was like, yeah, I spent some time in Manbij and the area, Kobiani and Manbij and NLZ and this area. And he's like, but did you see any PKK terrorists? I was like, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm sure I did, but nobody is waving a PKK flag. I mean, if anything, they're they had the SDF, patches, but they also have the YPG and the YPK, patches, which aren't PKK, but they're, they work with each other. And, it's kind of like, it's almost geography that, and just who they think their bad guy is. Like the YPG was focused on ISIS specifically and a little lesser Syria. Whereas the PKK was totally focused on Turkey. So, it was just kind of like, most of the people I saw were just people who lived there and wanted to. He was like, well, were they all Kurds? I was like, no, most of them were Arabs in the area we were at. So it was a good mix.
Two things. One, I remember way back in Manbij when the Turkish said, well, if the U.S. forces happen to still be in our way when we get there, that will be on them. That was my turning point on Turkey, right? My final straw.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the problem. And two, Ron, I had a discussion about you in this Washington, D.C. thing. I don't think that's the branch you're going to work for, but I did hear this story. So
yeah, that's funny. We could use a little crusty old Ron in Washington cleaning some of that shit out.
yeah, I think Ron will do some good with the Trump administration. So
all right, let's get back into it. So this next section is look how bad our ally, or look how bad the HTS guys are. Just in case you get excited about cheering for them as they do their thing. This is Kurdish women being taken as sex slaves by Islamist rebels in Aleppo. Dark days ahead, and they just manhandle her over. Watch her. Can you hear me?
I can. Hold on. I'm presenting. I thought it was still shared, but apparently when I disconnected, it stopped.
All right, here we go. So you got here, they just grab this gal. And there are Kurds in Aleppo. There is a Kurdish section, and they have been given the ability, the new landlords have given the ability to move out of the Kurdish area up to Kurdish held Syria in Manbij and other environs in that area. Joe, another yellow band, a yellow signifier there on this guy.
Yeah.
It's definitely a thing, right? And if you
That's
go to the
U
next
part in the salute report, right? Yellow armbands.
If you go to the next video, more of the same. A bunch of people in the back of a truck, that have been captured. This tweet says, Turkish-backed terrorist rebels in Aleppo have taken Kurdish women hostage, just as Hamas did in October 7th. The filth and scum in Syria are backed by NATO member Turkey. If it plays, I guess I can share. If yours isn't going to play, you got it.
Nah, you should do it.
All right, I got it. So
طالعي هون وليك انت وياها انت الخنازير تنجل لا حدا يضرب طالعي هون وليك انت وياها طالعي هون ارفعي راسك انتوا ارفعي راسك غطي لك شعرها ارفعي راسك يا خنازير انت وياها ارفعي راسك لهون انت ثانيه ارفعي راسك الازرق شباب يا خنزيره يا عدوة الله.
So yeah, I'd be pretty terrified too if I was these women. This is where, Joe, we were talking about never surrender.
The woman's like, "Hey, where'd you get that radio? Keep it away from my head, please. I don't want it to explode."
Yeah, I'm. That's not a pager, is it? And then so on the Allies front, so this is the whole kind of strange bedfellows. Is it playing? I'll just do one. This is a tweet over from ViceGrad24. Military column of Iranian reported. Get rid of that music. Iranian of Iraqi Iranian supported Shiite PMU forces entering Syria to join Assad's fight against Turkish-backed rebels. It's possible that parts of this column were strafed last night by U.S. A-10 Warhogs. Yes, so there have been reports that there was a strafing attack by U.S. A-10s against some of these guys in Syria. Now, I have not seen any CENTCOM reporting on that, so I am leery. If we engage targets, we tend to be fairly upfront about it within about 12 hours of the contact. So, actually, I wonder if I check over on the CENTCOM account if they've got anything. Have you heard anything on this, Joe?
No. On which? I'm sorry, I was distracted.
The A-10s versus the. I'm just gonna look at CENTCOM here. Yeah, they've got the stuff about the Yemen, but that's it. So yeah, I don't think it's real. I don't think.
Yeah, I can't imagine where we would base A-10s that could reach Yemen.
No, not Yemen. This is in Syria.
Well, you just said Yemen like a half a second ago.
Yeah. Because the last report they have is the one about Yemen and the destroyers.
I got you. No, I have not. I have not heard anything about A-10s in Syria.
Yeah, there were several posts that I saw that had that report, but anyway, so this fight's getting spicy. Well, let's see where it goes. Gentlemen, any comments before we jump into the Swamp Strikes Back?
No, but Syria gonna Syria, right? It's been this way since the Bible, right? Not going to get any better.
You can't argue with that.
Xerxes, right? So.
Yeah. All right.
Just a note as to what we're about to see, which is Twitter has absolutely no chill, and I'm all about it.
All right. So I'm going to give you how it started and then how it's going now. I got it. This is a Sean Hannity quote. And here's
the president will not pardon or communicate sentences for his son Hunter. I just want to make sure that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying
it's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Well, that didn't age very well. So now if you can share that one, Watcher. So this is a story from Zero Hedge. Hunter's lawyers moved to dismiss indictment after pardon. No, it's a no, but then it's a pardon. And it's not just any pardon. Now, it's been hinted that this is over the gun charges and what was the other charges?
Tax evasion. Because, all millionaires have to pay their share. Well, except that one guy.
That's right. Well, Joe, evidently, because of that, they went ahead and gave him a broad sweeping pardon that covers what? Shockingly, to the point where he became a member of the Burisma board.
Any and all federal crime, any and all offenses against the United States that he has or may have committed. That's absolutely ridiculous.
President Joe Biden is pardoning his son Hunter, despite Biden in the White House repeatedly denying he would do so. Here's the thing, Joe, is I gotta think that they probably like, okay, we don't want to do this. This is not a good look for us. We're not going to do it. Whatever. And then I wonder if the Kash Patel, putting him up as the FBI director was the nail in the coffin for, all right, we're going to have to, you put a guy like Kash Patel in the FBI and we're going to have to pardon him because they're going to dig all the laptop stuff up. They're going to dig everything else out. They're going to charge him.
I would do? I would put him under surveillance beginning January 21st and run him around the clock for 2 weeks. He can't not do something new.
Oh, 100%. That is 100% right, because these people like this don't change, Joe. We are creatures of habit. The pardon comes ahead of Hunter's December 12th sentencing for his conviction on federal gun charges, as well as an upcoming December 16th sentencing in a separate criminal case in which he pled guilty on federal tax evasion charges. The pardon, which is full and unconditional, is expected to cover both gun conviction and a guilty plea, and covers offensive which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in over a nearly 11-year period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. This is interesting because if they got him for anything during the rest of the year of 2024, then they could charge that too. Including this, Donald Trump was impeached for asking about, So yes, this is the pardon there. Biden pardons his son for every possible crime that he committed during a 10-year span. This is This is very rare though in pardons. I mean, usually you have a very specific crime that you're pardoned for. It's enumerated, and this is literally you could literally have been a
This is a
serial
get out
killer
of jail free card.
for anything that you've done in the last 10 years. Unbelievable. In a statement, Biden said Hunter was treated differently by his own Justice Department. So he can't even blame Trump's Justice Department, right?
Well, here's what's funny is the absolute gall of the guy to say that Hunter Biden has been treated unfairly by the American justice system when Donald J. Trump exists and draws air.
And
right?
the January 6th protesters are sitting there rotting in prison.
It's just absolutely ludicrous that he would say
by the
something
way,
like this.
Kudos to Trump in his Truth Social post mentioned, the January 6th protesters and called on Biden to also pardon them as well. And this is going to open up a lot of ammo for Trump to use against Biden going forward.
T in the chat, let me disagree with you. Ford's pardon of Nixon was an attempt to heal a divide. This is not, right? This is entirely Ford and Nixon were not related.
Right? So here's the thing: Nixon, all the tea was spilt on Nixon. Everybody knew what Nixon did, right?
Yeah,
and so he was shamed out of public life essentially. Like he was not, nobody went to President Nixon, for the most part for anything. After that, he was kind of a political pariah. And so, that pardon, while he didn't do jail time, that kind of goes back to the whole thing, Joe, of we have a history of not, politically persecuting our opponents. That's just been a kind of a, probably, some people have gotten off because of that, but ultimately it's probably been good for the country for the most part. But we're just in a level of corruption now, Joe, where that I don't think.
Yeah, this guy has stood on a stage and convicted Donald Trump of crimes he hasn't committed in the court of public opinion by calling him a Nazi, a racist. He's going to put y'all back in chains. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And yet has the unmitigated gall to say that his son has been treated unfairly. I just cannot believe it. And somebody said, well, why, if you're surprised at this, you're part of the problem. No, I'm not surprised by this. I've been offended by it the whole time because we all knew it was going to happen. But we also thought maybe he would have some sense and not do it.
Well, it's interesting. This next tweet in the story says, this is a tweet from Sean Davis. He says, Joe Biden's 11-year blatant pardon for Hunter is even more expansive than the pardon Gerald Ford gave to Richard Nixon in the aftermath of the Watergate scandal. And it shows the Gerald Ford pardon here. He says, now, therefore, I, Gerald Ford, President of the United States, pursuant to the pardon power conferred upon me by Article 11, Section 2 of the Constitution, have granted and by these presents do grant a full, free, and absolute pardon unto Richard Nixon for all offenses against the United States. So not all federal crimes, just those against the United States.
All federal crimes are against the United States.
Well, I thought it was you could have other types of crimes. It's not always.
They all say the people of the United States versus.
Against Richard Nixon has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 20th, 1969 through August 9th, 1974. So that's only 4.5 years, 5.5 years. So it's not as long a period as this one is.
And let me point out once again, they're not related. And Carter was not related to the draft dodgers.
Right. Let's see. In recent months, Biden has said he wouldn't pardon Hunter. I will not pardon. So the problem is he said he wouldn't pardon him. He's his son. So there's some people out there that are saying, oh, well, I could kind of understand it. It's his son. I would do this for my son too. I wouldn't. If my son did all the things that Hunter did and I wasn't directly involved, I wouldn't do this. Right? Now, here's the thing, Joe. this is better than immunity for Hunter. He has no ability, he has no reason or recourse as to not testify under oath if he's called before a hearing.
Y'all need to just stop with that hopium. No one's going to call Hunter Biden.
I don't think anybody's going to call him.
He's an unreliable witness, right?
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say.
And second of all, he's not going to actually say anything.
Well, the reason why people generally testify against their interests is because you have some kind of like leverage over them. You literally have no leverage over him to compel him.
So everyone says, well, now he loses his Fifth Amendment protections. That's correct, but I also can't compel him to speak, right?
Well, you could hold him in contempt of Congress, I guess. Like
he'll just say, I don't remember. I mean, it's worked before. It's not going to happen.
I mean, the best case scenario that you could use there is what they did to Bannon, essentially, which is what, 3 months, 4 months in prison. I don't know. Hunter probably would just look at that as an opportunity to get clean for a while. Yeah, so there's multiple videos of him saying no. I saw a clip video on X where somebody edited together all of the supercuts of them saying no, we're not going to pardon him, and then of course he gets the pardon. This is Bill Malugan says in October, I asked Trump if he would consider pardoning Hunter Biden, and he predicted Joe Biden would pardon him instead. He was correct. Yeah, Trump said, I wouldn't do anything that would be overt in terms of Hunter. It's a sad situation, Trump says. I bet you his father probably pardons him. We'll see what happens, but he's a bad boy. No question about it.
What's going to happen is our side's going to say, oh, we're going to take the high road, and then nothing else will happen. No one will compel him to speak. They're just going to move on.
Let's see. Just kind of going through here to see what else is in here. These other people. The interesting thing is there seem to be a lot of Democrats that are like, oh my gosh, like, are we the baddies now? Because they had said, these are people who say, oh, of course Biden won't pardon Hunter, because he's the good guy. And then all of a sudden he does this. So I think you're seeing some existential angst in some precincts of the Democratic Party. The people who were still supporting the Democratic Party after Kamala's run.
I mean, I don't know why they would be surprised to find out they're the baddies now, but yeah.
Well, let's be honest, Joe. I mean, the massive weapon of the Democratic Party is this whole idea of the neo-Marxist indoctrination and let's be honest, brainwashing of millions of people, tens of millions of people within the U.S. to just believe whatever the fuck they say. I mean, they could say the sky is red tomorrow and they would believe it, and that's the power of mass media, right? The Lincoln Project. So this is a tweet from Zero Hedge with the Lincoln Project says, when MAGA cultists complain about weaponized justice system, remind them that President Biden has refused to show favoritism towards his son because he has a commitment to the rule of law in our judicial system, regardless of who is involved. And then this is back in July or June. And Zero Hedge retweets it now saying LOL. So it says here, do you know why Biden picked 2014 as the first year of Hunter's pardon? That's when he was appointed director of Ukraine's Burisma, starting a sequence that would almost
say it isn't so.
I know. Essentially, he's going to be like the key person that brings us to World War III, if you think about it, because there's no way, if we ever get stuck in with China and Russia, there's no way in hell it doesn't have something to do with Ukraine. Taylor Cook for $5 says, after the last 4 years, if I were president, I would blanket pardon everyone, even remotely connected to my administration, every Monday morning. Well, you
Right.
know,
We have to be careful on judging Hunter Biden because he was picked for that job at Burisma based upon his vast experience in the energy field.
yeah. Well, Joe, I mean, this is when you're born the son of a vastly corrupt and amoral politician, right? I mean, I have no idea what Beau Biden was like as a person. I mean, hear Biden tell it. He was
Died in
like,
that raid on Moscow.
well, he was Jesus Christ in a flight suit. To hear Biden talk about it, but ultimately the guy chose to serve his country, and that's not a bad way to make a living, honestly. And God help him, he died of cancer, right? I think, and though Biden tells it differently from time to time, I hear.
Well, Hunter Biden has always been the bag man. He's the only lawyer who's never had an honest client, only lawyer whose sole responsibility was taking bags of money and funneling it to his dad. That is the truth. And I can say that now that he has a pardon.
So. Joe, the crazy thing is that if you're the president of the United States, you could absolutely cut ties with somebody who is acting the way Hunter Biden did, or you can encourage it in order to continue to have control over him. And I think that's exactly what happened. That's just my sense, especially
Steve says, I cannot wait to see that spokeswoman's face in the next press conference. Funny thing about that, they have canceled all press conferences for the next 7 days.
Surprise! They're hoping the UFO war starts sometime in the next 7 days, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the Hunter Biden pardon. And interesting. So moving on to the next one here, we've got this is a BBC story. So this is interesting. Joe, I want to get your feedback on this headline. Trump threatens 100% tariff on BRICS nations if they try to replace the dollar. This is an interesting thing. Now, they haven't replaced the dollar yet, but they've talked about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea, but I don't know that it actually works in real life because they all have other markets for their goods. So, I don't know. It might cause the price of beef to go way up and some produce in the off season, but I don't know.
I'm curious what percentage of China's market comes to the U.S. I think it's like 20-something%. I mean, I
was thinking more along the lines of Brazil and India.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is if you can peel members of the BRICS off of China, right? If China says no, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, we're gonna do the BRICS dollar or whatever. If you can get India or Brazil or somebody like that to come, well, maybe I don't want a 100% tariff from the U.S. If you can, kind of coerce and split them off, then that becomes I'll
be disappointed if they don't call their currency the brick.
I know. So I mean, so what do you think would be potentially the best way Trump could go after an alternative currency to replace the dollar? Specifically, the petrodollar is really what we're talking about here.
That's the problem. We have no leverage because the petrodollar is propped up and artificial. There really isn't anything you can do. We don't actually have the buying power to make that happen. Because what happens if you do this? The majority of U.S. hard currency, actual bills, is outside of the U.S. If you start doing this, those dollars then come back to the U.S. where they are worth less than they are in the international market. And you just further collapse our own monetary situation.
Yeah. All right. So let me read a little bit of this here. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 100% tariff on a block of 9 nations that are creating a rival currency to the dollar. If they were to create a rival currency to the dollar. The idea that the BRICS countries were trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over, Trump wrote on social media on Saturday. Major world powers, China, Russia, are part of the BRICS alliance, along with Brazil, India, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. During the U.S. election, Trump campaigned on the implementing widespread tariffs. He has escalated threats to steep levies in recent days. This latest message from Trump, who will take office next year on 20 January, was aimed at the BRICS, a bloc of mostly emerging economies. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social. They can go find another sucker. You look at the threat of tariffs against Mexico, and Canada immediately has produced action. The Texans, this is Ted Cruz said on CBS News, Face the Nation. On Friday, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made an unscheduled trip to Trump's Florida state Mar-a-Lago. I get the feeling that Justin Trudeau was basically called, "Come here, Justin. I want to talk to you." I get that vibe from the whole thing. I mean, even though Trump was kind of all smiles with him, I get the feeling that this was him telling him telling him the way it's going to be. Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary has previously suggested that the president-elect's threat to impose major tariffs were part of his negotiating strategy. My general view is that at the end of the day, he's a free trader. It escalates to de-escalate, which I get that, right? It's a negotiation tactic and whatnot, but ultimately he's got to be prepared to, if they call his bluff, he's got to be able to say, well, hell, I wasn't bluffing. I'm going to do it. And I get the feeling that Trump, if somebody called him on it, I get the feeling that Trump would do it. So interestingly enough, they're lying here in this story. So a tariff value is a domestic tax levied on goods as they enter the country, proportional to the value of the import. So a car imported to the U.S. with a value of $50,000, subject to a 25% tariff, would face a $12,500 charge. Okay, what they don't say is that a wholesale value of that. This is, because what they try to do is equate it to increasing the price to the retail, and what you're not doing, that's just not what you're doing. Now, there are some cars, a good example of a low, what's the word when the low margin good, right? Like a car. You don't make a ton of profit on each one. It's by selling hundreds of thousands of them is where you make your profit. It's more of a revenue generator, and so that could be an issue. But ultimately, this is where you would just see increases in production of foreign-made cars here in the U.S., which is something that they could do. All right. I thought this was interesting, but at the same time, I mean, like I said, if he's going to put a threat down on the table, he's got to be ready to use it.
Let's be honest. What's his history of following through on these things?
Yeah, spotty at best.
I know everyone likes to never mind. The God Emperor can do no wrong. My apologies.
Well, you're not hearing me say that.
No. I didn't say that.
I know, but I get the feeling that when you say that, you're implying that that's what I'm thinking. But
nope.
Trump nominates Kash Patel for FBI director. So this is one of these kind of things where I'm like, okay, this is a good decision. So because I think it's a good decision, I need to remain calm, first of all, Trump has to become president in order for this to happen.
Yes.
Right. And we've talked about those kind of potential pitfalls between now and then. God forbid World War III could start. I mean, I hate to sound like, like somebody who's saying the sky would fall, but I mean, we've talked about this recently. I mean, we've been closer to World War III than at any time since the Cold War for sure. And including much of the time probably the Cuban Missile Crisis is the closest time that we've been to, in a similar type of situation. And nobody shot any intercontinental ballistic missiles. Oh, I'm sorry, intermediate range ballistic missiles with full MIRV packages, unarmed MIRV packages in that period of time.
That we've seen work really well.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to be living in that city if those had nukes in it. It would pretty much be dust. So yeah, there's that. And so when me and Joe are saying, listen, this is great to talk about this Trump stuff because it's great. And I want to be positive, hopeful, Scott. I want to say, hey, listen, the chance of anything really, really significant happening is maybe 10% or less, but still, that is not zero. That is a chance that it could happen. And then if you throw World War III out, right, that's like your worst case scenario. Then you've still got what happens if there's a domestic, some sort of domestic security crisis that, we need to declare martial law because there's a domestic security threat. Bombs are going off, a Matt Bracken kind of like somebody's, shooting the Super Bowl, or, football games over the New Year's, this is a coordinated terrorist attack or something like that. Well, we're going to have to declare martial law, and this, that, and the third. Oh, we can't have a transition of power at a time like this. We'll have to push off the inauguration until the summer. I think Biden would be immediately impeached if he did that, but I'm not saying that it's still not a zero chance that could happen. So there's all kinds of things that could happen. God forbid, Joe. I mean, we've seen 2 assassination attempts already with Secret Service protecting him. Even though the Secret Service is still protecting them, that doesn't, he's not bulletproof. And his airplane is not Stinger proof. He's still flying around in Trump Force One, not the actual Air Force One with all the penetration aids and, defensive countermeasures. So, a SAM missile would be a viable method of assassinating the president at this point. So there are a lot of things that could happen. So when I get excited, understand, there's the other shoe could drop. So that said, Trump nominates Kash Patel. Joe, I'm happy with this. What's your kind of take on this? Do you know much about him?
No, Kash Patel has some serious administrative background, so he does have the ability to do the job. But I believe I made my position clear on X. I don't want there to ever be a director of the FBI. I want the FBI to go away.
Yeah, I think in order for any of these organizations to go away, we have to nominate people who hate what they've done to basically be the.
But bureaucratic inertia is a thing, right?
Well,
he's going to get in there, and they're going to explain to him all the reasons why they have to be there. And by the way, they're going to show him some photos like they did Mike Johnson, and all of a sudden he's going to become a very different person about the FBI. And here's the other thing. Why would I take a job knowing that my job has an expiration date? I'm there to dismantle my own job. Once a guy gets a position at an agency like this, he tries to keep the agency so that he gets to keep his job. So think about that too.
Well, the one thing I will say, Joe, is that I will say that I think guys like Patel are fairly right for these types of jobs, especially if justice is something you're looking for. But I don't know how many people within the Trump orbit really want to see the end of the FBI, right? Like, they may say, oh, well, FBI needs to be 50% smaller, or they needs to be a shadow of what it is now, or, this, that, and the third, right? They may have said these type of things, but most of the people, I think, most Republicans still think the FBI could serve some purpose. I mean, I'll be honest with you, brother, this organization was conceived in corruption from the very beginning. J. Edgar Hoover set the course for this organization. It's never not been political, but sometimes it did a good job of camouflaging itself as apolitical. Because it's full of it's basically subordinate to prosecutors, right? And prosecutors are always political because they're that's how prosecutors are voted, right? They're not selected, they're voted into offices, right? And so, it comes from that kind of political viewpoint. And so, I mean, I agree. I want to get rid of the FBI. I think there are elements within the FBI that should continue to work in other, but not under the FBI. I think my personal take on federal law enforcement should be the Marshal Service plus some kind of specialized high, capabilities like the crime labs and things like that you could, but even that needs to be reformed. There's corruption within the crime lab. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with the FBI and Cash. I think it's pretty good. Let's see what the story says.
This has to get confirmed too, though, and wait for it. This may come as a surprise, but the FBI is about to come out swinging about why Cash Patel is the wrong guy for the job.
Well, I mean, Christopher Wray has already done that, right? I mean, it's like I can't remember one of the former. It's either Christopher Wray or. No, it wasn't Christopher Wray. It was one of the other people during the Russia hoax era came out and said he's profoundly unqualified. I'm like,
let me ask this question just for fun. Who appointed Christopher Wray to the FBI director?
I think it was George Bush, wasn't it?
And then who decided to ask him to stay?
Wait a second. When did Mueller came out during Obama, right? He served into Obama's time, didn't he?
He served into Obama's, and then Obama he was going to leave, and Donald Trump asked him to stay. So,
asked Mueller to stay or Wray to stay?
Wray.
Okay, yeah. Because Donald Trump thought that the FBI was this, paragon of civic virtue and all. I mean,
despite the fact that they were already coming after him.
Him, exactly right. So he didn't know what the deal was. I get the feeling.
Augustus Tiberius, I don't mean to be the ultimate black pill distributor. I just mean to be truthful and keep you all grounded. Everyone gets their hopes up, but man, we're not there yet.
Andy McCabe was who it was that was doing that quote. Yeah,
McCabe was an associate director who filled in, and Trump put Wray in place.
Yeah.
So.
Said he's picking Cash Patel to replace Christopher Wray as head of the FBI. Patel is a longtime critic of the Bureau who has called for shutting down the agency's Washington headquarters, cleaning the house while it comes to top leadership and bringing the nation's law enforcement agencies to heel. According to Saturday Post on True Social, Trump called Patel a brilliant lawyer, investigator, and an American-first fighter who has spent his career exposing corruption, defending justice, and protecting the American people. He played a pivotal role in uncovering Russia hoax, standing as an advocate for truth, accountability, and the Constitution. Let's see. Patel has said he also intends to aggressively hunt down government officials who leak information, and he wants to dramatically limit the FBI's authority. He hopes to curb power to the Justice Department's Civil Division and jettison a Pentagon office that produces classified assessments. The interesting thing that I think that he has said is that he wants a basically 24/7 unclassification machine within. I don't know if that would be within the FBI or if that would be kind of in the federal government, more broadly, but I kind of agree that there was way too much stuff classified.
The menu
And so
at the FBI headquarters is classified.
the
Stop
what?
it.
The menu?
The menu at lunchtime is classified.
Yeah, so stupid.
Stop it.
So stupid. So for those who say he's profoundly unqualified, first of all, he has been in the secret rooms, right? He has been in all the skiffs. Because he was the deputy director of national intelligence during the Trump administration. So he's been there. He also worked within the Pentagon. It says he served as a both federal prosecutor and a public defender and filled a number of administrative roles at the tail end of Trump's first term, including National Security Council and in the Pentagon. And in a sign that this is a good move, in 2021, when Trump floated Patel for deputy director of the CIA or FBI, former AG William Barr said that would happen over my dead body, which that's like, if William Barr says that, then I'm thinking maybe we're in the right ballpark. So this is, I want to play this here. This is good. This is that Andrew McCabe thing here. Sorry. There we go. Now we got it.
I just want to start first with you and just get your reaction to this news tonight.
Yeah, well, it's a terrible development for the men and women of the FBI and also for the nation that depends on a highly functioning, professional, independent Federal Bureau of Investigation. The fact that Kash Patel is profoundly unqualified for this job is not even like a matter for debate. So I think what we should really be thinking about right now is, what does this signal in terms of Donald Trump's intent for the FBI? The installation, or the nomination, I guess we should say at this point, of Kash Patel as FBI director can only possibly be a plan to disrupt, to dismantle, to distract the FBI, and to possibly use it as a tool for the president's political agenda. And, as an organization, we know what that looks like. This country has been there before, right? The pre-Watergate FBI, the J. Edgar Hoover FBI, struck fear in the hearts of Americans across the spectrum of politicians.
The irony there, Joe, is that he thinks that this is going back to the Hoover FBI, which...
The irony is, he said that the FBI is independent. It is not. It reports to the Department of Justice, which reports to the executive branch. The only truly independent law enforcement agency in America is the United States Marshal Service, which reports to the judiciary as opposed to the executive branch.
I thought the SEC, I guess the SEC still reports to the president, office of the president.
The U.S. Marshal Service does not.
Yeah.
And people in entertainment, people in the civil rights community, because the director operated at the direction of presidents to collect political intelligence and to utilize the legal authority.
This one right here.
Yeah, yeah.
Good shirt.
The investigative authorities of the FBI to terrorize.
Is that liberty for the EU? Is that what that is? That would be funny, though.
No.
And intimidate Americans. So the question is that where we're going back to with this nomination? I would argue that Kash Patel would be the perfect person for Donald Trump to nominate if that's in fact his intent for the FBI.
So a lot of humor there in that, Joe. Any kind of thoughts, based on what he just said?
I think that they showed Kash Patel sitting there in that shirt for a reason. These people do nothing randomly. They picked that because to them that's a symbol of domestic extremism, the Gadsden flag, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to start painting him as some sort of an extremist. Watch.
Let's see. Lance Corporal Veteran for $2 says Fed agents always fed tools okay when they do it. Yeah. I mean, so that's just it. It's rules for thee and not for me, right? They don't want to be held to the same standards.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. This is classic right here, Joe. This is Jake Sullivan talking about the FBI director. Here, let me share this one.
I do want to ask you about President-elect Trump's decision to nominate Kash Patel as FBI director. I mean, as you know, he's a fierce Trump loyalist. He has vowed to go after the deep state. You have worked closely with the current FBI director. What do you think it would mean to have Kash Patel in that role?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to President-elect Trump's nominees. I'll let him speak for his own rationale. What I will say is how the Biden administration has approached the position of FBI director. We inherited Director Chris Wray, who has done a very good job in the role, from President-elect Trump, who appointed him to a 10-year term. And what makes the FBI director different from most other nominees is they're not just appointed for one term of a president. They're appointed for enough time to last past 2 terms of a president because they're supposed to be insulated from politics. President Biden scrupulously adhered to that longstanding bipartisan tradition, and for a good reason, because the FBI director should not be subject to the whims of the twos and fro's of politics. But as for the announcement yesterday or the decisions President-elect Trump has made, they'll have to speak to that themselves.
Independent. It's supposed to be insulated from politics. I mean, Joe, come on. The attorney general works for the president. The president can say, hey, I think there's something wrong here. You need to look into this. That is not, he can set priorities. He can give guidance. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's sure as shit has been going on under the Biden administration. And it sure as fuck went on during the Obama administration.
They say the same thing about the U.S. military, yet the secretaries are all appointed. You know what I mean? The only one that's not is the chairman, but the chairman serves at the pleasure of the president as well, though.
Oh, so. Yeah. You don't think Trump's not going to? I wouldn't be surprised if he clears out all 5 of the service chairs when he comes in. Yeah. So this last one is a doozy. Like, okay, so we just talked about how Kash Patel is a good pick, and he's a good pick. He still has to get confirmed. I think he has a better chance of getting confirmed than Gates did, but ultimately we shall see, right? Joe, say what you will, no matter what Trump does, it's like every time he does something good, it's almost like he does something bad just to kind of keep us on our toes or piss us off, or I don't know, something along these lines. And this next one's going to piss you off. Real quick, let me get this super chat in. Durna for $5 says, unelected officials not being subjected to politics in a republic means they are outside the control of people who elected their politicians. Yeah. And so that's the problem with the deep state.
Great point.
That's the problem with the deep state, right? It's this kind of unelected professional class within the federal government that basically they say, listen, boss, you just showed up with the new administration. Let us explain to you how it works. Well, I don't want to do it that way. Don't worry, boss. We'll make sure that you do what the fuck we want to do. And oh, by the way, it's so hard for you to fire me that what are you going to do? You're just going to transfer me to a different division, and I'll exert the same influence at that place because I'll still be a GS-15 or whatever.
See the Syria pullout order, right?
Exactly. All right, let me get to this one here. This one is a doozy, brother. We've been all kind of joking on X about how we need to make Brandon Herrera, the AK guy, the ATF director. And we all knew that was never going to happen. But we assumed that, with Don Jr. is a big pro-gun guy. Donald Trump is less of a gun guy, but he tends to say the things he wants because he wants the people who support his American First agenda to appreciate him. He has literally nominated somebody who's going to get so much hate. I think this time next week, you're going to see more people talking about this guy than they are Kash Patel. Okay, so for me, Joe, I saw a lot of people posting about this guy. Oh, he's an anti-vax, or he was a COVID supporter and all this kind of stuff. He was a lockdown guy. He was, did this, that, and the third, right? And I'm like, okay, you're telling me he did that stuff, but I need to see what he said. I want to get some evidence here. And literally after 10 minutes of searching, I found this thread on X, and this is excellent. Okay, I'm from Tampa Bay, Florida. I followed Chad Chronister. So this is Chad Chronister has been picked the head of the DEA, right? It's like, what are you thinking? This is the Drug Enforcement Administration. This is the guy who's going to be fighting the fight with the Mexican cartels, right? And Chronister is a woke and weak Democratic plant. He will backstab President Trump. He cannot be trusted. Here are some of the reasons. His office promotes transgendering teens by participating in the Tampa Pride event, created a liaison office for transgenders and other pride affiliates. So let me open the link here. And the stuff that is like that it's connected to is absolutely damning in my point of view. He looks like a mainstream progressive politician. So this is LGBTQ. Let's see. This is the Facebook page. I don't ever go to Facebook. The LGBTQ liaison program, and this is Sheriff Chad Chronister. Let's see what he has to say here, Joe.
For LGBT,
what sheriff's department?
We learned.
This is Hillsborough Sheriff. I
Tampa.
guess.
Okay.
Yeah, Tampa, right.
And grow from one another.
Here at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, we want to model the community that we serve and show citizens we are like them in every way.
We are all the same, and we all have the same rights, and we all deserve the same freedoms and protections, and there's no reason to be fearful of law enforcement.
The LGBTQ liaison program wants to foster an environment
All right, I've seen enough. Joe, I mean, gay people have the right to live their lives and do whatever the fuck they want to do, man. I mean, it's, but you need to keep that shit out of the
I'd like to have the
policy.
right to live my life without this stuff being forced down my throat every 24 hours.
Yeah, spending taxpayers' money to make this shit is what I object to. And this is Marxist political theory in action. And the fact that they are embracing it, and don't get me started, the entire federal government has done it through the DEI programs, but this is purely political, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is purely political.
This nonsense has no place in law enforcement.
Amen, brother. So let's go on to this next one here. We've got Tampa Bay News talking about the DEI program. Let's see. We spoke to about 50 people. This is a jobs fair last week, was relatively small in scope, but the Hillsborough County Sheriff Office derived a big present, 3 recruiters and recruitment screening manager. The HCSO's effort reflecting its ongoing recruiting push specifically for minorities, women, and young adults, as it looks to add greater gender diversity in its rank. It says it has 4,000 employees. Now, so it goes down here to talk about what the demographics of the office are. And so I looked this shit up to see how it actually goes. So it says here, now the void left by retirees is being filled by younger, increasingly more diverse crowd of African Americans, Hispanic, women, and military veterans, according to Lozada. Currently, 70% of all HCSO employees are African American. Okay, that's exactly in line with the population of Tampa. It's 16.9% based on 2022 numbers. Mm-hmm. There's like 1.5 million people who live there. Okay, now there's approximately 30% of the people, I think it was 30%, it might be a little less, that were Hispanic. Now, it says here there are another 17% are Hispanic. So they have a big gulf in their Hispanic recruitment. So they need to, okay, so you got a big gulf there. Hey, 30% of the local populace is, we need more Hispanics. And so you push for that. But that's specific to Hispanics because, hey, listen, we have a lot of Hispanics people we're engaging with. We need more Spanish speakers. We need people, from those communities to bring them in the office. That makes sense to me. Like if you have an all-white force and you've got a majority black area, you're policing with the wrong kind of crowd. You need to draw from the communities and send the police back to those communities. you don't need to do it. Yeah, and then what is the gay population is what 2% max. I don't know. Tampa is pretty. I hear it's pretty.
I mean, it's not Atlanta, but
yeah. That's true. But the point is so you don't need any gay police. You're just going to naturally get some in there, right? And then so the rest of the population is white men, and they don't want, and because they're 70%, 34% are female, right? So they want more men. We want more women to join the male-dominated sheriff's department. It says here that law enforcement is an occupation that females excel in, Joe.
Negative. That is completely false.
I agree. I mean, there are probably tasks within law enforcement that females can excel within, but
there's a disproportionate number of female police chiefs, but that's only because of diversity hires and diversity promotions. And in law enforcement, women perform less well than men because turns out it requires the application of violence.
Well, Joe, the kind of where the rubber meets the road is the beat cop, right? I mean, if you can't be a beat cop, you shouldn't be a cop, right? And women are just at a disadvantage. I mean, even if Joe, we know a lot of based women who can have absolutely the right mental attitude to do something like that. But at the end of the day, they're 5'5", 120 pounds, 130 pounds. I mean, those women can't go up against the 6'4".
It's not a slight against women because men and women are indeed different. No matter what feminism tries to tell you, they don't have the same musculature. They don't have the same bone structure. It is difficult. So I don't recommend putting women in those roles because I don't want them to get hurt. Not because I'm sexist, but because I respect women. I don't want them getting beat up by thugs on the street. The other problem you have with these recruiting numbers is you can't force people to want to take a job. I can go out and try and recruit all the Black and Hispanic people I want, but in their cultures, they don't want to be cops. It's not cool. It's not what they want to do. They played cops and robbers a different way, right? So it's just it's one of those things. You can't force it, right?
Charlotte Jansen said, Joe, you were so close on the Breakfast Club quote. He needed to fake ID so he could vote. I can't remember anything from college, but 90s movies, 80s movies, song lyrics, and commercials. I got you. Yeah, I loved all those movies. I knew exactly the quote you were talking about when
we went back to the theater to see whatever the anniversary was that when it was out. It was actually cool.
Yeah, I mean, they should do more of that. Like actually playing old movies in theaters.
There's a lot of theaters that specialize in it. So
let me go back here. Taylor Cook had a $5 super chat. This whole idea that power of the executive branch doesn't solely and completely flow from the president is nauseating. Yeah, it absolutely does.
100%. Yeah.
And let's be honest, if the president abuses power, he gets what he deserves a lot of times. You essentially see a pushback from the legislative branch. But ultimately, if the people are behind the president will be successful if he is allowed to do his fucking job.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Donald Trump, he has a pretty damn clear mandate. Jim tells you, member chat for 15 months. Thank you, brother. And by the way, Jim Satala has got a YouTube channel. So if you go over to YouTube and check out his YouTube channel, actually, you know what? Jim, if you've got the mod wrench, if you've got the link, share your YouTube channel in the chat. Let people know where they can.
I'm pretty sure it's Jim tells you.
I know, but I'm saying the link. Instead of making them search for it, just let them find the link. This pick means that Pam Bondi is the wrong choice for it. Yeah, he is her guy.
You heard it here first, by the way, and I was roundly castigated by it.
Yeah, see, I freely admitted that I didn't know much about her, and I just knew she was kind of like a big Florida Republican kind of.
She's big on the red flag laws. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a big problem. She claims that she changed, but she is who put this guy forward, and Trump needs to fire her. Yeah.
Now, for all of you who said she claims she changed, but she didn't, apply that to Tulsi, please. That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
100%. I've always said that. It's like Tulsi literally just became a Republican, yesterday. All right, I don't want to go through all these links, but here the point is this tweet is like, this is what tweets should be. Like, this is exactly what I want to see in a tweet. So he's got links, he's got the receipts for all this stuff. In March 2022, he arrested a local pastor who kept his church open during COVID. The pastor spent $100K to upgrade the church's air and filtration system, making his church safe for those who wish to attend service. Nonetheless, he arrested and held a press conference touting his arrest. Yeah, I saw that. And it's sickening how he basically had that preacher as a backdrop for the press conference. He's a big Democratic donor. He gave money to the Democratic Barack Obama, Mayor Jane Castor, Congressman Kathy Castor, Congressman Charlie Crist, and the DNC. He's weak on crime. He released a criminal with 35 priors who went out shortly after his release and murdered someone. Yep, I mean that's what Democrats do. He was weak during the BLM riots, having his deputies stand down as rioters destroyed property, including a gate of a county jail. His office was generally slow to respond during the BLM riots when other sheriff's offices around the state were out in full force. And when you just mentioned, Joe, he supports red flag gun confiscation, has used this policy many times. This guy is not the guy for the DEA. I'm here to tell you. I want to apologize, by the way. I got it mixed up with the ATF early on when I started talking about it, but yeah, he's the DEA. All right. So that being said, Trump's doing some good things. I mean, mark my words, he's got some of the right people in there, but he's also got some fucking duds in there that we need to make a big deal about, because if anything we've seen, Trump is influenced by the will of the people. And if his voters rise up against one of his picks, I get the feeling that, some of these picks may not get the support they deserve. So yeah, Squishy Hunter's not wrong, Joe. Huge tracts of land, Hawaii. The Hawaiian mountains are very large this year. All right.
Some of you are.
Karen, I can't buy that. Here's the thing. I think that Trump values loyalty. Pam Bondi was very loyal to him, and he asked her and she said, "Listen, I know a guy who would be great for DEA," and I think that's how this happened.
This is how a lot of. You know what? No, never mind. I'm not going to say anything. Disregard.
What? Come on,
Nothing.
Joe.
No.
All right, guys. That's all I got.
Do no wrong, right? That's
well,
all.
I mean, you've got a shocking number of people who are saying, well, I read Mein Kampf, and it's, we were lied to. It's not that bad. No, it is that bad. I've read Mein Kampf too.
There's a lot of folks who believe that Trump can just do no wrong and they have to attribute some grand scheme to it. Look, Trump made bad picks before. He's going to make bad picks again. Everyone does. It's not. I mean, it's not anti-Trump. Trump's going to do as good as he can, but he always has lacked follow through, and he always has made bad picks.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying about people. So, like. Before Elon bought Twitter, right? There was this whole kind of thing, Elon save us, right? Like this whole kind of messiah projection complex on Elon. Now, listen, I like Elon. I think he says a lot of good stuff. I love his SpaceX stuff. The Tesla, I could take it or leave it. I don't really care. I'm not a big electric car guy, but you can't put everything into one guy and just count on him to be your savior, right? There was only one savior, and he's already come and gone. And if you want to learn about him, the New Testament is right over there.
And also, other than that, personal responsibility. So it's going to save me. If Elon's going to save me, I don't have to do anything.
So what you need to do is listen, if Elon's going to help us, that's great. That's just force multiplier, right? It makes your life a little easier, but ultimately it still forces you to get out there And this goes back to what we've been preaching about since when you and I first started hanging out, is that A, you have to train, B, you have to set up your networks, and C, you have to keep a weather eye on the horizon, because if you're
You're going
not
to be involved locally. You have to be involved.
You need those networks. If you don't have those networks, then you're a man alone, and no man is an island. So look what happened to Mad Max in the Road Warrior. You know, when he was all by himself, he got fucking rolled up. So got to have a tribe.
You went with Officer Mac Rockatansky of the Maine
Rockatansky, that's right. The Maine Forest Patrol. We're gonna get you, Bronze. All right. Remember the Knight Rider. All right. Anyway, Joe, anything else for the folks? We got a long week this week. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff happened over the weekend. What do you think we may see coming up?
I think we're going to see a building firestorm over this pardon. I think that even the Democrats at this point can't defend this action. It exposes the corruption of the Biden family 100%. So I'm hoping to see some more some pressure put on him over this. So
yeah, I agree with that.
We shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But ultimately, hey, you know, pray for hope. You know, pray for rain, right? Hopefully everything holds. Yeah, where is Watcher to play the Knight Rider? Yeah.
Well, Watcher knew the show is supposed to be 2 hours long.
Well, yeah,
so
I get the
Watcher left like 45 minutes ago, back when it was 2 hours long.
So that, you know, that's you got to remember. Watcher's the Knight Rider. Knight Rider dies in the first bit of the movie, so he's already died by now because we're close to the end of the movie. I hate Toe Cutter. I hate guns. See, I knew there was something I didn't like about that guy. All right, guys, that's all we have for today. My thing to watch out for. Watch out for what's going on in India and Bangladesh. Now, Joe, you brought that up, and I looked into it, and I have not seen anything about like actual border tensions, but there is something building. There's a new president. Go ahead.
Back in August, there was a soft coup where the former president was removed and replaced with a more hardline Islamist. And after that happened, there has been a lot of pressure placed on what they call militant Hinduism, which, first of all, is literally hilarious. But they've been arresting Hindu monks and claiming that they are extremists and that they're trying to overthrow the Bangladeshi government, when in reality they're advocating for actual free elections. So India has made some diplomatic complaints and has said that perhaps they might need to intervene for the protection of their Hindu monks and nationals that are being arrested by the Bangladeshis. So last night, there was a lot of folks who reported Bangladeshi tanks on the move. Could just be training, but it's most likely just bolstering the border against threats of an Indian intervention for the protection of Hindus.
Yeah. So the old president was pro-Indian. The new president is not pro-Indian.
Correct.
And ultimately that has stirred up the, anti-Hindu sentiment. And so we're seeing that kind of, Joe, it's very similar to the Russians' complaints in Crimea. It's like, you're not treating the Russians that lived there the right way.
Exactly right.
So, there's been a bunch of diplomatic activity in India with discussions at high levels. I had a little summary here when I realized there just wasn't enough there just yet. Anyway, the point is that kind of like what Joe said, is that there's a lot of tinder for a fire here. Just kind of put India in your search terms this week when you're going to look up news and see if you see anything with Bangladesh or India. There could definitely be something.
Clark. Yes. So, series of civil wars and regional conflicts. Yes, I may have heard this a time or two.
Well, the irony is what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? World War II will create a bunch of more, this destabilization of the international order will cause things that were held in check for a long time to break loose. So it's absolutely correct. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. If you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, whether you're over on Rumble or on YouTube. And let people know that you're getting some good stuff over here at Future Conflict. Thank you, Joe, for hanging out with me. We went a little long. I'm sorry. I honestly didn't realize what time it was. So I apologize for keeping you late. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging with us. And as always, stay safe.